各位嘉宾、观众朋友们，大家晚上好、早上好，欢迎参加2024年多大中国教育论坛艺术教育分论坛。我是今天的主持人，本次艺术教育分论坛的主创李瑞康。另外一位是来自复旦大学哲学院的博士生申楠。那么接下来我们就开始进入到今天的一个主要的论坛。This year, our forum topic is lighting the nearby, exploring cross-cultural practice in art education and local engagement. We cordially invite participants from China, Canada, German, American, Brazilian, and African to share their personal experience and cross-cultural research on arts education's role in local engagement. Our diverse art subjects encompass museum exhibition, archaeology, intangible cultural heritage, music, festival, and so on. Our thematic discussion will revolve around using art education to establish local identity, enhance the relevance of art in local placemaking, ensure art accessibility to promote social justice, and explore new media to preserve and disseminate traditional and local cultures. This discussion will collectively shed light on the relation between art education and local engagement in cross-cultural context. 本次艺术教育分论坛的主题为点亮附近跨文化视角下艺术教育与地方参与的新实践。我们邀请了来自中美德巴西等世界各国的研究者实践者，探讨艺术教育如何点亮附近，促进地方的发展。他们的领域覆盖艺术展览、歌舞、戏剧表演、课程等等。我们希望通过此次的交流和对话，探索出一条以艺术为连接纽带，以居民为艺术创作的主体，以附近为情感生发的场域的多样化的艺术参与道路。Okay, so the significance of art education in nurturing local engagement has been a topic of considerable discourse. Past studies have primarily emphasized community engagement to underscore art education's role in foster tangible regional involvement. However, the concept of the nearby, as introduced by anthropologist Xiang Biao, offer a fresh perspective on social interaction and the fabric of daily life. It proposed that lived space where individuals regularly encounter diverse backgrounds can enhance their experience and perception of the world. Our core concept is, how does art education light the nearby? To be more specific, in the global context of localization, how do we understand the nearby? How can art education illuminate the nearby? 附近是人类学家项彪近年来提出的概念，为我们观察地方提供了一个更具有活力与创造力的视角。我们引用了项彪的附近的概念，扩展到艺术教育和地方参与领域来探讨。我们认为，将附近用于跨文化视角下的艺术教育与地方参与具有重要的意义。一方面，目前国内外主流的艺术参与社会的探讨主要采用社区 community 一词，而社区一词建立在稳定的成员身份和同质性之上，主要关注的是同一地理环境、共同文化价值的群体所组成的集合。而当下，随着全球化和跨国迁徙流动，人与人之间的关系变动不居，不断研发出新的问题意识。关注附近能够聚焦关系的流动性，并探讨艺术如何在流动的人群之间建立情感联系。另一方面，中国在艺术教育和地方参与上的新实践也无法完全用用社区这一个词涵盖，以附近作为一个新的焦点，能够将中国的艺术教育在地方参与中的体现的特色与其他的文化进行平等的对比，让我们在差异和共鸣当中寻找对话的可能。因此，本次论坛的核心问题是，当今全球地方化的背景下，我们如何理解附近？艺术教育如何从媒介、内容、观众培养等方面去点亮附近？ There are four main topics in our forum. Topic 1, art education and the culture identity, focus on how does art education promote the identity construction and belonging expression of diverse group. Topic 2, art education and placemaking, inquiring how does art education contribute to placemaking and connect more social group. Topic 3, art education and accessibility, ask about how can art education provide more nearby residents with access to more resources. Topic 4, art education and cross-cultural communication. Think about how can art education extend the nearby and contribute to cross-cultural communication. Each participant will give us a 10-minute presentation. And after that, you will have 10 minutes short discussion in the group. We strongly welcome all audience to write your interest question to us. We will discuss it in the final part. 为了深入探讨这个议题，本次论坛共设置了4个对话主题，它们是艺术教育与文化归属、艺术教育与地方制造、艺术教育与可及性，以及艺术教育与跨文化传播。我们希望嘉宾和观众在对4个议题层层递进的探讨当中，对艺术教育与地方参与的新实践有了各个视角的了解。12位来自世界各地的嘉宾将会分成4组，嘉宾进行10分钟的个人分享后，每组会有10分钟的对话时间，邀请嘉宾们针对彼此的分享提出问题，共同探讨。4组嘉宾发言结束后，我们会共同的去邀请观众参与话题的探讨，请在场的各位听众来一起去分享你们的留言。So thank you all our dear speakers. Thanks for your participation. So 欢迎各位嘉宾的加入。那么现在我们就进入到正式的论坛。Let's start topic 1, art education and culture identity.It focuses on how does art education promote the identity construction and belonging expression of diverse group. Let's welcome Wang Siyu from Peking University of China, Jill Carter from University of Toronto, and Hugh Vass from Columbia University to share their art education experience in China, Canada, and Brazil.接下来，我们进入到第1个对话主题：艺术教育与文化归属。教育关乎人，润物细无声。艺术教育则是让不同的群体认识到自我身份和文化归属的重要方式。那么，艺术教育如何促进多元文化群体的身份构建和归属表达呢？我们邀请了来自北京大学考古文博学院的王思玉教授，来自多伦多大学戏剧与表演研究中心的 Jill Carter 教授，以及来自哥伦比亚大学艺术家 Hugh Vass， 分别探讨来自中国、加拿大以及巴西的经验。Wang Siyu is an associate professor at the School of Archaeology and Museology, Peking University. His topic is self-representation through object, participatory exhibition in China. 王思玉教授是北京大学考古文博学院助理教授，他发言的题目是物件背后的自我表征，参与式展览在中国。Jill Carter works in Centre for Drama, Theatre and Performance Study, University of Toronto. As a research and theatre worker, Jill Carter worked in Taro to work with many indigenous artists to support the development of new work and to disseminate artistic objective process and outcome through community-driven research project. Her topic is calling them in, native performance culture and the rhythm of reconciliation, remembering ourselves in deep time. 吉尔卡特教授是多伦多大学戏剧和表演研究中心的助理教授，多伦多大学原住民研究协会的成员。他发言的题目是召唤他们本土表演文化与重新和解的韵律，在深度时间中认识自我。Hugh Vass is an artist. He held a master's degree in art administration from Columbia University and a complementary degree in political science from the University of Liège. His topic is art education as a tool of cultural decolonization。Hoover 是哥伦比亚大学艺术管理硕士，比利时列日大学的政治学学士。他发言的主题是作为文化反殖民的艺术教育。Each participant will give us a 10-minute presentation, and after that, they will have 10 minutes to discuss with each other. Let's welcome the first speaker, 王思玉。每位嘉宾有10分钟的发言时间，到9分钟的时候，志愿者会提醒，请大家注意时间。3位嘉宾依次发言后，我们将有10分钟的时间留给嘉宾互相交流感想。下面，让我们用掌声热烈欢迎第一位嘉宾王思玉教授开始发言。
各位观众还有各位嘉宾大家好啊，为了我自己表达更流畅，我就直接说中文了。首先非常荣幸能够受邀来参加这次的论坛，很高兴能够借这个机会跟大家分享在这个我们自己的实践当中关于艺术与社区之间的一些问题的反思。今天我想表达的这个主题是物件背后的自我表征，想谈的是一种参与式展览的做法。之所以做这个主题的发言，是因为在我们这些年的实践里面，我们一直在试图在中国的语境之下，用一种参与式展览的方式去探讨物件背后怎么与更多元的人群建立起联系，以及怎么用这种参与式展览的方式激发起更多的community， 更多的人，他们对于这个自我认同、对于文化认同的一个认知。所以今天主要想跟大家分享一下我们这些年的一些想法和一些主要的案例。我今天会说3个话题，一个就是为什么我们要使用这种我们为什么需要这种自我表征式的展览。第二的一个是我想分享2个我们自己做的在中国的参与式展览的案例。最后我们想表达一下我们的一些核心的结论。首先第一个，为什么我们需要这种自我表征式的展览呢？我觉得对这个问题的回答是，首先它是当下中国或者当下世界诸多的公共机构所面对的一个共同的需求，那就是对于很多在过去看来与当代社会遥遥无关的机构，它其实都需要面对社会问题，面对的是当代的社会问题，包括博物馆，包括艺术中心，包括城市更新，然后遗产地等等这些机构，在20世纪后半叶之后都需要回答一个问题，那就是自己与当下社会究竟存在着什么样的关系。所以在这样的一种背景之下，它借用展览展示，借用物件的收藏与对外展示的方式，去呈现一个自己对当代问题的思考，对当代社会的一个关照，已经开始变成了一种整体性的一个趋势。这是我觉得很重要的第一的一个背景。第二的一个，为什么是需要用物件来做自我展示呢？那我觉得这是与这种艺术表达手段自身所具备的特点相关的，那就是我们会认为在物件背后，它其实是带有着一种光晕的，物件带有着一种模糊性，这种模糊性，但是它又带有一种真实性。在这种真实性和模糊性的叠加之下，对于观看的人来讲，它更能引发一种自身的共鸣，然后能够通过一种含蓄性的一种表达，去让这个物件背后的含义得到更大的传达。所以我们会觉得透过物来做展览，它其实是一种相较于其他的艺术形式而言，也有着独特优势和独特魅力的一种展示模式。这是为什么我们想要在做这种物件背后的自我表达展览的一个原因。然后接下来想跟大家分享一下我们这些年做过的2个案例，我们具体的一些做法和当时的一些想法。一个是我们在去年的时候，在中国北京的海淀区有一条街道，这条街道的名字就叫做海淀路。在这条海淀路上，它的一个基本的背景是，对于北京来说，它有一个很大的需求，就是所谓的城市更新，或者说是城市再生。那么在这样的一个背景之下，政府在主推这样的城市更新案例的时候，这些年在中国也开始 逐渐的去提倡一种公众参与式的城市更新。也就是说，在城市更新的过程中，不是只由政府一方来发挥自己的主动力，而是能够强调更多元的力量、更多元的主体也能参与到城市更新的过程当中去。所以在政府做这样的项目的时候，他也会考虑我的城市更新项目能够以怎样的方式让更多的人感受到共鸣，能够让更多的人也参与其中。所以这是我们在海淀路去做这个所谓的墙上博物馆这个项目的一个很大的背景和原因。给大家看几张照片，在左下角的这张照片其实就是海淀路它被城市更新之前的这样的一个照片。这张照片里面可以看到，在城市更新之前，它基本上还处于一个比较破旧、比较衰败的这样的一个状态。右边的照片是我们在海淀路进行了城市更新之后的一个照片。我们做的一个基本的工作是，海淀路上其实有很多的老旧小区、老旧住宅，这些住宅上面呢，它其实是有这个老破旧的围墙的。那么我们就借用这些围墙，把围墙作为一种展览展示的展场，在这些围墙里面展示与这些小区、与这个住宅、与这个街道相关联的人、他们的物件和他们的一个生活。所以为了做这样的一个展示项目，我们首先做的工作当然是征集以及挑选与街道相关的人，他们的回忆相关的这些物品，包括我们会围绕着这些人去做相应的一个口述史。在做完了口述史之后，我们在对外呈现的时候，我们会强调以个人的视角来呈现这件物件与这个街道之间的关系。也就是说，你不用去解释你的物件从一个更宏观的角度是如何影响了这个街道，你要谈的就是在你个人的视角下，你自己这件物件怎么反映了你和这个街道之间所发生的故事以及记忆，并且在展示的过程中，把口述史的内容原画、原封不动的尽量的对外进行呈现和对外进行展示。而且我们在这个过程里面也收集了这个街道自身的发展历史，同时在这个展示的时候，收集了与街道有关的人的这样的一些声音比如说上课的声音，在路上的这个汽车鸣笛的声音，路过的时候商铺叫唤的这个声音，我们把这些内容都收集起来，共同进行展示，借此来丰富整个展览的一个展示内容。所以这个展示它其实是一个很直接的目标，是服务于城市更新在一个公共街区里面做的，想要唤醒大家更多的人对这一个街道、一个公共空间他们的一个回忆和他们的一个链接。这是其一的一个项目。其二的一个项目是我们在一所博物馆里面，位于云南昆明的这样的一所叫做云南省博物馆的博物馆，做了一场叫做追寻香格里拉的这样的一个展览。这场展览它有一个很大的背景，是与中国的现在文化展示的政策有关的。那么简单来说，就是在中国现在的语境之下，在做少数民族展示的时候，更主张去展示民族之间的多元交流和文化交融。那么在这样的一个背景下，策展人就决定把这个香格里拉这样的一个展览界定为首先介绍一下香格里拉好了。香格里拉是位于云南省的这样的一个城市它是一个知名的旅游城市，但它同时是一个多元少数族群在这里共同移民，然后定居、共同生活的这样的一个城市。这场展览原初的目标就是展览香格里拉这个城市，但是在我们的介入之下，我们希望这场展览它展示的一个主题不仅仅是围绕香格里拉这座城市，也围绕着这些多元族群他们是怎么走到这个城市当中来，并且在这个城市里面进行文化的交流和交融。所以展览的主题被我们定义为了这个迁徙，就是一个跟交流和移动有关的话题。那么我们在做这个展览的过程中，我们就发现迁徙这样的一个主题，它不仅仅是关于过去的人，或者说是关于一个 关于一个他们的问题，它更涉及到今天现代社会下，我们每一个人其实都会有迁徙这样的一个过程，我们每一个人都经常在做迁徙这样的一个动作，所以在展览的最后一个部分展厅，我们做了一个面向当代人的参与式展厅。在它的整个展览的前2个单元都是比较大家常规的，能够看到的博物馆式的对香格里拉当地人的物件的一个展示。但最后一个单元我们开放，作为一个开放性的展厅，邀请不同的人贡献自己与自身迁移相关的这个物品，然后把这些物品在最后一个展厅进行集中的展示。所以在这样的一个背景之下，我们首先是升级了迁徙相关的物件，并且用口述史的方式记录他们与这些物件之间的一个关系。我们挑选了一些比较重要的人群，然后来做重点口述史，更多的人群则是做他们的一个群像记忆，并且在最后在展厅里面做了一幅地图，这是一个互动性的装置。在这幅地图里，每一个参观者他可以在地图当中勾连起自己居住过3个月以上的地点，并且把它勾连到一起，然后构成一幅属于自己的迁徙地图。在做这个过程中，我们在强调的一个重点是，我们希望能够最大程度的展示自我，寻找共鸣。所以说，我们也是把故事最大程度的原汁原味的在展厅里面进行了每个人的故事进行了放大，并且对个人的这个生活经历做成了一份个人档案。在这个个人档案的把这种个人经历用档案的形式在展厅里对每个人展示，让观众看到一个更整体立体的一个个人，并且我们还邀请每个当事人挑选一种颜色来我们会问当事人，你认为哪一个颜色最能代表你与这个物件之间的回忆，然后并且把这个颜色做成展厅里面展柜的展盒，然后围绕着这个物件进行一个展示。所以这也是一种让个人的记忆进行表达的一种方式，并且我们会很强调，我们挑选的个人都是具有社会议题属性的一些个人，他们的迁徙故事不仅仅只是一种自我情绪而已，他们更反映了一种在现代性背景之下，比如说你的家国情怀，你对家乡的一个怀念，以及你的现代病等等。也把这些问题也展示在观众面前，让观众看到一个更为丰富的现代社会。所以这是展厅现场的一些基本的一个情况。这是我们在最后设置了一个互动留言区，邀请观众看完了这个展览之后，你可以写一封信给自己，分享你看到这个展览之后，你想要对当事人以及想要对自己所说的话。所以最后我想要表达的意思是说，我们为什么要做这样的参与式的展览？我们想要做的方式是，虽然它是在不同的语境里面、不同的场景里面去运用，但我们都想要表达一种物件背后的一个自我表征，并且我们在表达这个问题的时候，我们是带有极强的面对当下社会议题的这样的一个诉求，而且我们在做展示的时候，不太完全只是为了展示一个过去，我们希望把一个过去的议题和今天的议题粘合到一起。然后共同来展示你对今天的一个反思，然后以及你与过去这个时代之间的一个连接。所以以上便是我们想要做的主要的工作。我们希望通过展示的目的不是完成一个简单的展览而已，我们希望通过展示连接更多的人，叩问当下的社会问题，去探讨一个更好的世界是如何形成的这样的一个议题。以上便是我的所有发言，谢谢大家。
Okay, thanks for your inspiring presentation. As you see, objects can as a media to connect the past, the present, and the future. We have gained a lot. So next, let's welcome the Professor Jill Carter to share her topic, calling them in native performance culture and the rhythm of reconciliation, remembering ourselves in deep time. Let's welcome.
So you want me to share the screen for you? You're muted, Jill.
Sorry, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you so much. As an older Anishinaabe artist and arts educator, I have a complicated relationship with arts education, and specifically with training in drama theater and performance studies. Next slide, please. Storytelling is a way of life for my people. It is a pedagogical vehicle, it is a ceremonial act, and it is a crucial mechanism through which relationships are formed and maintained. Through story, in all of its manifestations, the human being is formed. Yet, as a young Indigenous woman, I had to fight mightily to gain entrance into a theatre program, to complete my training, and to eventually work as a theatre maker within Canada. Such exclusions of racialized and otherwise marginalized youth continue today. Perhaps we don't meet a specific aesthetic. Perhaps we don't structure our narratives according to the conventions that have been laid out by the Western masters. Perhaps what is excellent and beautiful to one is not so to another. Slide 3, please. The Deep Time Working Group was formed as a site of artful encounter for various individuals who wish to encounter and reflect upon a genocidal history on occupied lands and to play some small part in facilitating its redress. Often, academic working groups are populated entirely by academics and their graduate students. Articles are shared and read and discussed, and often a publication comes out of such a group. Our group is different. The call to participate was issued to pre-university students, undergraduates, faculty members, staff, Indigenous elders and artists, and community members of all ethnicities outside and apart from the university. Members came and went and participated in accordance with their interests and convictions. Our first priority as an academic working group with funding from the Jackman Humanities Institute and with access to resources across the university was to deploy our abilities, our funding, and our resources to support Indigenous communities, interests, and individuals in their projects of renewal, wherever we were called upon to do it. Slide 4, please. Our text became the land upon which we live and do our work. We thrust ourselves into deep encounter with the lands of all 3 U of T campuses, lands which carry a fraught history. How many Indigenous individuals have defended their dissertations in a house that was occupied by the architect of the Indian Act, an oppressive legislative net that continues to direct Indigenous life today? I am one of those people who did this. How many Indigenous students walk by or enter buildings once occupied and run by the curators of the infamous nutritional experiments carried out at the residential schools their parents and grandparents were forced to attend? What do such encounters do to the human body and the human spirit? The Indigenous bodies that carry the epigenetic traumas passed down by their forebears, whose suffering was curated on these lands. What do such encounters do to the non-Indigenous body, which has benefited from these historic projects? Slide 5, please. Our members walked these lands on and off all 3 campuses and listened to their stories. Our members engaged in theater workshops with Floyd Favel, participated in personal cosmography workshops, designed spaces for healing, participated in a movement workshop, participated in a movement workshop with Ganagahea choreographer Santi Smith, who also took us through her version of an Edge of the Woods Welcome to Territory ceremony. We understood that reading and writing were not enough. Slide 6, please. Our entire instrument would need to be engaged if we were to effect and experience bone-deep transformation. Other activities of our working group included, slide 7, please. We'll zip through it quickly. Slide 8, please. That's a language installation we volunteered to work on through Robert's Library. Slide 9, please. So in this slide, Sylvia Plain is a Mother Earth water walker and land defender. She is also the founder of the Great Lakes Canoe Journey. This encounter began for us, the Deep Time Working Group, on the Humber River around canoe family protocols. Later, several of our members collaborated with Sylvia on a shirk grant. This grant supported Sylvia and a youth at Garden River First Nation, as Sylvia instructed them in the traditional protocols and practices of harvesting materials, of building tools, their own tools, of constructing a birch bark canoe, of launching the canoe, of forming a canoe family, of encountering other canoe families, and of properly caring for their canoe. All monies were directed to the Great Lakes Canoe Journey and the Garden River First Nation. They led the project, and our members, academic and otherwise, became only helpers. We did a lot of harvesting of spruce gum and birch bark and roots to sew the canoe together, all of these things. The only academic output that emerged from this project was a co-written report for SHIRK on the processes of relationship building and the unique structuring of an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, based on Anishinaabe principles. Next slide, please. We created this paddle and gifted it to Sylvia Plain at the end of the project. This documents the story of our relationship build, and in her travels to meet other Indigenous canoe families around the world, it is one of the stories that she carries and recounts on her journeys. Slide 11, please. Although our projects continue, I think I'm going to be ending, well, I'll end when I'm given the signal, but I may have to end here at the 2019 with Encounters at the Edge of the Woods. Hart House Theatre is on the U of T campus, and it may, this is no exaggeration, be understood as the crucible in which Canadian theatre was born. In 2019, Hart House Theatre celebrated its centenary, 100 years of storytelling in which no Indigenous presence ever graced its stage. Encounters at the Edge of the Woods is a production devised by its members, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, who did not audition, but who answered my call to participate in the creation of a performative intervention that responds to the lessons we learned together about our campus lands, about the history of relations between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples in Canada, about the history of harmful research practices and exclusions. The company of storytellers included Indigenous, non-Indigenous faculty, elders, undergraduate students, graduate students, alumni, and Indigenous community members outside academia. I acted as co-writer, dramaturg, and director of the show. Slide 12. Please, in March 2024, the Playwrights Canada Press released its publication of our play script and a series of essays by those company members who wish to reflect upon their experiences of engaging together with difficult knowledge, of forming relationships, and of working through a unique and specifically Indigenous process of creation, a process which blended story weaving, curation, and land-based dramaturgical methods. I am particularly proud of the publication, see the left of your screen, in that it has amplified the voices of those who might not have been heard. Several of those co-authors are undergraduates, others have no association with any university, others still are the usual academic suspects like me. All proceeds from this publication go to the Indian Residential School Survivors Society. Response to this show has been intense and artful. This word cloud that you kind of see in the background was gifted to us by the then warden of Hart House, John Monahan. This articulates his reception of the play and his determination to act upon the lessons he has learned to move forward in a good way. We have 1 minute. If we could jump to the very last slide. So skip to page 15, I think. Really quickly, our working group has based itself on embodied learning and somatic response. It is a community that has formed itself as a reflection of Canadian society through radical inclusion, calling on any and all bodies who wish to commune on the lands on which they have been born and to which they have arrived, and who wish to form profound and lasting relationships with the lands and with each other. But sifting through harmful histories and difficult knowledge sometimes requires moment apart, requires irreconcilable spaces where we retreat to separate groups from each other so that we can process these histories, so that we can think through the work together, and so that then we can come back again and do the work as an intercultural collective. I believe in radical inclusion. I believe in calling them in. But once I have called them in, it is my duty to take care of them, to ensure that they are not traumatized or re-traumatized during their forays into deep time. It is my duty in the classroom and in the rehearsal hall to ensure that the work of crafting story and world building is deep work and true work, and that it is work that heals and empowers. And I believe that if we are going to go deep, we must go carefully. Thank you for having me. Sorry, I think I went a minute over or so. Miigwech, thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Carters, and thanks for your sharing of irreconcilable space to show the tension between the structure and agency of the indigenous artist and the community. So maybe later we can talk about it more in detail. So next, let's welcome the Hugo Vaz to introduce his topic, Art Education as a Tool of Culture Decolonization. Let's welcome.
非常感谢 Gerard Carter 教授带来的发言。下面我们邀请Hugo Vaz， 他的发言题目是作为文化反殖民的艺术教育。
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me as a guest speaker at the China Education Forum. I am going to share a little bit of my experience as an educator, both in Brazil and in New York City, and how I have used the arts in the classroom to promote, as far as possible, cultural decolonization. So to begin with, because I'm a Brazilian citizen, first of all, I was obliged to understand the process of national formation, the ethnogenesis of the Brazilian people, in order to identify the continuity of a colonial development model after the political independence from Portugal, only to be able to make a diagnosis of the inferiority complex and the role of art education in revaluing cultural heritage. So just to give you a brief overview of Brazil as a new people, the ethnogenesis of the Brazilian people is based on the Portuguese colonial enterprise in South America, which had its main dynamo, the main driving force in the economic occupation of land. So because of this model of occupation of the land, the workforce conscription played a key role in amalgamating and blending three ethnic matrices: the Iberian from Southwest Europe, Moorish Galician people from Portugal, the indigenous peoples who lived in the South American subcontinent, most of them belonging to three macro-ethnic, ethno-linguistic families: the Arawak, the Macroje, and the Tupi, and the myriad African nations who were enslaved and brought over to do compulsory work in the colony. Most of them from the Jeje, Ketu, Nago, and Yoruba and Ndongo nations. So the process of workforce conscription has led to deculturation, whereby these peoples were deprived of their original culture, and the subsequent acculturation, which is an incomplete, a partial assimilation of the culture of the oppressed. This has resulted in creolization, which means that this new people who formed were profoundly different from their three forming ethnic matrices as a result of ethnic amalgamation through a process of asymmetrical power. There was a very big imbalance of power between the peoples involved. So with the political independence from Portugal in 1822, the important models of development, the presence of foreign capital, and the foreign cultural references that marked this process of transition from a colonial status into national sovereignty has kept the Brazilian people in a condition of cultural dependence. The cornerstones of continuity and dependence were based on labor and land ownership. For most of the period, slave labor, but after the abolition of slavery, the work conditions remained pretty much the same. Land ownership, which was exclusive to the wealthy. The French mission, which many are not aware of, is a group of intellectuals and artists who were invited by the Portuguese king to civilize Brazil from 1816 on, and they founded the Imperial Academy of Fine Arts in Rio de Janeiro. They have set the new standards of cultural values, a new cultural paradigm according to which Brazilian society had to model itself. And this has relegated the African and the Native American indigenous heritages to a secondary background of inferiority. Also, foreign capital, especially British and French capital, was very present in the economic development of Brazil. And in the late 19th century, the Brazilian Empire, because unlike all other Latin American countries, Brazil became an empire after political independence. The Brazilian Empire established a project of attracting European immigrants as a means to racialize and civilize the Brazilian population, to render it white. So this has created in the Brazilian popular imaginary a complex of inferiority through which they perceive themselves as being inferior. And this was completed by the post-war American role model that maintained and intensified industrialization and consumption as standards of development. This inferiority complex, as a result of the elements of continuity that characterize the transition from colonial status to national sovereignty, have left profound marks in Brazilian popular culture, as I have expressed. And this has conformed a conflicting cultural identity in the people, because they inherited reference models that were not perfectly adaptable to the reality where they were living. In other words, they were receiving cultural references that didn't perfectly match the environment where they were operating. So this low national self-esteem has perpetuated this condition of underdevelopment in detriment of the Western developed powers, and the overvaluation of colonial powers because of the reliance on foreign capital and external validation. So I have decided to introduce art in the classroom as a tool of cultural decolonization, because once I understood the historical processes, I was able to revalue cultural heritage and stimulate a process through which students would reshape collective self-perception and emancipate themselves. First of all, it's important to understand that art and education are cultural vectors. We use art and we use education to transmit culture. And through this process of cultural transmission, we will condition art appreciation and art making. Art appreciation, on the passive pole, will redefine aesthetic paradigms and redefine a set of values for art appreciation. On the active pole, in art making, students stimulated by this new critical perception will engage in art making from a different perspective, and that's when we enact change. So I'll briefly mention 3 examples of how I've done this and how art education has illuminated the nearby, to echo the concept coined by Professor Xiang Biao. As he puts it, the nearby is a scope of seeing which conditions the individual in relation to the environment where they operate. And in contrast with this idea of community that's mostly fixed and homogeneous, the nearby is fluid and changes constantly. The nearby has also is like a multi-layered source of identity, where we have the natural landscape, the human landscape, and and social relations as sources of identity. So in order to affect the relationship of students to their nearby, I have taught a musical masterclass called Doing the Dishes. I kicked off the masterclass by singing a song that I wrote in French language, which is regarded as a very fancy, sophisticated language. And that was the reaction of the students. When I asked them, what do you think about the song? Everybody would say, well, this is a very fancy and chic song. But then I would sing the same song in our own Caipira dialect from central Brazil, and everybody would start laughing. Why so? Because the same song sung in different languages is perceived differently according to this paradigm of inferiority that marks post-colonial societies. And that's where I started to have students realize how these values must be inverted. Another example is the Week of Solidarity, where I've worked with the Terra Livre NGO that's based in Aparecida de Goiânia in central Brazil. They serve an underprivileged community by providing free meals and education for 65 children aged 3 to 13. Once a year, they welcome a group of American volunteers from the states of Iowa and California who bring donations and conduct volunteer work with the children at the educational center. This is very easily dubbed as voluntourism, where tourists from the wealthy world come to do social work as benefactors. So I, as the one of the main educators in this project, I try to invert this imbalance of power, this asymmetry, and instead of having the foreign volunteers teach the students something, we would have the children make paintings of the Brazilian mythological creatures from Brazilian folklore and to teach capoeira to the Americans so that they would use their own cultural heritage as a tool to invert this relationship and empower themselves and make them proud of their own heritage in relation to their nearby. The last example is in New York City. Now, I've been living in New York for a couple of years now. And just as I got here, I became a teacher at the Community League of the Heights Cloth, which is a community center based in Washington Heights, an underprivileged community in Upper Manhattan. And I taught English and culture to immigrants and refugees, most of them from the Caribbean and from Venezuela, where bachata is a very popular dance style and type of music. So instead of just assuming this position of educator and teacher in the classroom, I provided students with the vocabulary that would be necessary for them to teach me how to dance bachata. So I was, again, empowering students to have them rely on their own cultural heritage to be able to assimilate the contents that I, as an instructor, wanted them to learn. So these are a few examples of how art education helped diverse groups build identity and belonging. And in my opinion, art education should reshape and improve individual and collective self-perception by offering alternative valuation paradigms so that they can understand the world around them, the nearby, from a different perspective, and instead of just resonating with the dominant perception of the world as inherited by the colonial system. Because again, in Manhattan, the immigrants from the Caribbean and Venezuela, they all bear this inferiority complex that is present in all post-colonial societies like the Dominican Republic and Venezuela, for example. Also, I believe that art education should be geared to help students perceive the multi-layered sources of identity that compose the nearby and enable individuals to improve it through their agency. In that regard, I encourage you to take a screenshot of the references if you would like to learn more about this, and I encourage you to stay in touch. Feel free to reach out. It has been an immense pleasure to share my experience with you, and I would like to thank my friend Sean Le Yi for kindly translating these slides, and thank the University of Toronto and the China Education Forum for having me share my experience with you. Once again, thank you very much. 谢谢. Have a good night, everybody. I look forward to keeping the discussion alive. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Wes. Thanks for your inspiring presentation. And I'm very interested in your concept of the inferiority complex. Yeah, it's a very important theme of the identity. So just to inspire you, now it's your discussion time. I think all of your three mention the terms identity and also use the art education to talk about the cultural identity. And I guess whenever the Professor Wang Siyu just use the time from the past to present to the future, or the Professor Jill Carter just to talk about the indigenous identity and their environment, and also the West talk about how can we just witness our identity in this decolonization process. We all talk about how to witness the self, settle the self in the time and space. So this is also what we want to talk about the nearby. So now it's your time to talk about some related problems, such as according to your presentation, presentation, you both three. How does the art education promote the identity construction and the belonging expression of diverse groups? What is the challenge of it? So you can just go freely to share what you want.
非常感谢各位嘉宾的精彩分享，让我们对艺术教育语境中的身份认同有了新的思考。现在有请王教授、卡特教授和瓦兹用10分钟的时间讨论。主要问题是，根据您的介绍，艺术教育如何促进不同群体的身份认同建构和归属感表达？它面临的挑战是什么？
Let's welcome. So Professor Wang, maybe you can start.
OK，我觉得艺术对社群的一个表达，可能建构最主要的，在我们做的事情里面是一个自我表达的问题。就是在我们刚才提到的这2场展览里面，最重要的一个概念是我们希望让多元的人通过展览展示这样的一种方式，能够找到一个自我表达的一个途径。我刚才的发言里面很强调的一点是，我们会跟这些多元族群去做口述史，去做访谈。在口述史和访谈的过程当中，我们会鼓励他畅所欲言，他可以自由的去说自己想说的内容，然后最后我们把这个内容用艺术的方式呈现在观众的面前。我觉得这种自我表达的形式是一个我们在做我的这2个案例的时候最想要强调的方向。至于挑战的话，最核心的挑战在我们的案例里面是，我们的时间很紧张，就是做这2场项目的时间都非常的紧张，因为这几个项目它背后的资助力量并没有给我们充分的准备的时间，所以包括我看到2位国外的老师，他们有非常长的前期的时间，可以去和相关联的社群去沟通、去交流、去反复的去协调和协商。这样的情况在中国，在我所经手的这2个项目里面是少见的。我们的资助者会要求我们很快速的给出相应的方案和相应的成果，在中国的语境下。所以我们会缺乏一个更长期的去和这些多元社群去深度交流和沟通的这个时间。所以现在在中国来讲，我觉得做这种社区用艺术点亮社区的这样的项目，可能最大的问题之一也正在于我们要有更长的这样的一个准备时间。我们怎么样才能够争取得到这样更长的准备时间，可能是我们最大的一个挑战和问题啊。
Okay. Thank you, Professor Wang and Professor Carter and the Vaz. As the Professor Wang has mentioned, the self-expression to use the oral interview to be the identity self-expression, and maybe for you, you can use the performance or the drama or the music to do this. So can you just elaborate more? And also, Professor Wang told us the challenge is in China, we have limited time to do this. So how about you in Canada and maybe Brazilian or American? Is there any other challenge? So maybe Carter, can you share your idea?
Okay, so I'd like to preface my remarks with this. And in full transparency, I am not a speaker of my grandfather's language, Anishinaabe. I am not a speaker of that language. I'm an older person who is trying to learn this language now, of that generation. And by the time I die, if I'm lucky, I'll be able to speak as clearly as a 6-year-old. And I will be very lucky if I can do that. I preface this because I have learned from my elders and others that there's no word for artist in our language. No, there was traditional, in other words, we all lived artful lives. And I have always come to the table as an educator. And I guess, an artist, a person who goes out there and directs, performs, writes, etc. But as an educator in the classroom, I come to it with the belief or with the attitude that I am an artist training other artists. whether they know they're artists or not, that we're all artists and we are writing the world for our children and grandchildren. We are crafting it and writing it together. And so, you know, one of the challenges I find that confronts me both in the classroom and in the rehearsal hall and with some of the work I try to do, you know, these tensions exist. And the nearby, thank you so much for sharing that article. This was the first time I encountered it, having encountered you, so thank you. And I'm still thinking through it on a whole lot of other levels. It's like informing so much of my research and my thought right now. But, you know, here are a couple tensions that I experience. And I tried to talk about this, just skating it as an Indigenous woman. And I've written about this now in other publications that will be coming out. But the tension between, you know, people are always talking about, you know, it's a very popular trope that Indigenous people here on Turtle Island have a great connection to the land. This is not untrue. We do. What is not talked about is some sort of moment of rupture that the body can experience because of the violence that's been done to that indigenous body on the land or historically. So when I walked up 3 flights of stairs at the School of Graduate Studies at the University of Toronto in the year of 2010, as an Indigenous woman defending her dissertation within a university that had not really, you know, welcomed our people, certainly didn't welcome our knowledge systems, and everything else, and that it was the house of Sir John A. Macdonald who called us savages, who architected this legislation under which we continue to be, our lives continue to be directed. Legislation that tore our families apart, that destroyed our children, that destroyed our mothers, etc. I started to walk up those stairs, and it was as if someone had taken a baseball bat to the back of my legs. I literally fell. And I started crawling up those stairs because I said, darn it all, I am going to go up and defend this work. Pass or fail, succeed or fail, I am defending the work that I've done here. And I've seen many others, you know, and experience more and more attuned to this disconnect. So we are nearby, and yet we've been pushed to the farthest edge. I think, too, of classrooms. Look at, in Canada, and I'm sure many places in the world where there are multiple ethnicities coming together, sharing space with different stories and different abilities and different life experiences and carrying their own traumas, etc., coming together and trying to have discussions. And so I'm finding now that this idea of irreconcilable space, I was very crude with encounters at the edge of the woods. I said, Indigenous, non-Indigenous, right? We're going to have these groups separate, come together, separate, come together. And it worked beautifully, actually. But I've since realized that it's more than that. There are other affinity, you can call them affinity groups or whatever. So even in the classroom situation, I'm pulling people into groups in which they identify, discussing these things, and then asking these groups not to bring their words, but to bring an artistic rendering of what they've done so that they can abstract the personal story. The tears may have come out in this group. Very personal stories may have come out, but they can then take the essence of that story and put it into an artistic piece, which then they can share with other groups. So, again, sorry, I should wrap this up again, wrap up my own monologue here. But another tension between bringing people together and yet maybe we have to step apart before we can be together. I'll shut up now. Sorry.
Thank you. Thanks for your wonderful inspiration. Because I think you think to bring people together is just like the same as Professor Wang told us, resonance between different culture and different group. And I was very moved. From your saying, I can see the power of resonance. I can see that even though we are rooted in the structure, but we indigenous people or the women, we also have the agency for our body experience to just express ourselves and connect with others within our body experience. So thank you very much. So how about Vas? Is there any similar experience, or is there any difference in your present life experience?
I would like to expand on what Professor Jill has started talking in relation to language, because language is a fundamental component of identity. And I encourage her to pursue this goal of speaking her ancestors' language. In New York City, there is a very vibrant movement of language revitalization, especially of the Lenape language that was spoken on these lands before colonization. And I would say that language is one of the most powerful connectors in binding a population to a territory. So I am sure that the language that is chosen to illustrate what Professor Wang has shared with us, the Road Museum, is also a very important component, even though I don't speak or understand Mandarin. I'm sure that language is a very important component of that. And in that spirit, I would like to say that language has to be carefully crafted in order to stimulate students within the realm of a classroom to adopt, both in passive and active artistic engagement, new standards based on what their language provides them with, but also in terms of what they can reconquer. So art appreciation and art making should benefit from this intervention of the educator within the classroom, so that the educator will gauge the student's perception and to have them engage in art making in a way that holds colonial agents accountable for the historical processes that have led to massive social inequality, marginalization, the environmental crisis, and all the forced migration that we witness contemporarily. So everything is very well tied together, and it's manifested in several different levels, from the international sphere, where the United Nations the General Assembly has just approved declared the International Decade of Indigenous Languages, as well as within the classroom. That's where we act within our nearby on this immediate one-on-one relationship with students.
Thank you, Vas. Yeah, thanks for your mention the importance of language to mention the identity. So as we can see, both three speakers talk about how to establish in language cultural identity from the language and also the body experience. So we can see that both the body experience, the material thing, and also the symbolic thing, such as the symbolic representation and the language, are both important in cultural identity. So your inspiration is a lot. Thank you very much. So yeah, thank you. So now we will turn to the second topic. Welcome you to listen continually. Okay, now I want to bring my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So the topic 2, art education and place making, inquiring how does art education contribute to place making and connect to more social group. Let's welcome Jason Hu from South China University of Technology, Guangzhou, Janice Tim Burton from Concordia University, Montreal, and Christian Langer from FU Berlin to share their experience in China, Canada, and Germany.
在探讨完身份和归属的问题之后，另一个问题浮现眼前：如何通过艺术教育制造地方，让不同的群体基于特定的地方归属产生新的情感联系呢？第二个对话主题：艺术教育与地方制造，邀请了来自华南理工大学建筑学院的何志森教授，来自加拿大康考迪亚大学美术学院的 Janice Tim Bottles 教授和来自德国的 Christian Langer 研究员，分享他们来自中国、加拿大和德国的经验。
Okay, so Jason Hu is an architect, artist, educator, front of the mapping workshop, associate professor of School of Architecture, South China University of Technology, Guangzhou. His topic is My Initial 500 Meters. How does the nearby serve as an arrow for observation and action?
何志森是一名建筑师、艺术家、策展人和教育者。社会行动组织 Mapping 工作坊创始人，他发言的题目是我的最初500米附近如何成为一个观察行动的场域。
So maybe first we welcome the Jason Hu to talk, and after that we will introduce another guest. Welcome, Jason Hu.
好，谢谢大家。然后
你可以
我就直接哈，可以看到吗？
可以看到。
Okay. All right, I think I'm going to conduct this presentation in Mandarin, right? So there's a translation. 我改了一下我的文件哈，不好意思，就是
没问题。
对，就是但还是聊附近哈。我是一个建筑师，然后我也是个艺术工作者，我还在高校教书。然后我给你们的文件是我的最初班米哈，这是我跟向标的一个工作坊的一个题目，但我觉得就是今天大家聊附近，聊这些东西好像越来越多了，所以我就觉得还是算了啊，就用另外一个项目去讲述有关附近哈，所以我今天的一个题目叫，这是我之前的一个工作坊哈，最近的叫一个布税花花园，这个项目呢，在我家附近，是一个城中村，叫康乐村，这是应该是全球最大的制衣工厂，所以从这里出去了很多的布料啊，很多衣服的这些零件都是从这个城中村出去的，所以这个城中村很大哈，就是有很多的问题。然后它最大的一个问题呢，就是这个碎布垃圾特别多，然后这个碎布垃圾就是引来了很多的老鼠啊、蟑螂啊，然后非常非常臭。因为这些原因哈，很多的问题，这个城中村，今年开始是要开始拆了，城中村在中国越来越少了哈，所以基于这样的一个背景，我从去年开始，2023年开始，做了一系列的种花的工作坊，做花的工作坊哈，就是我们在想，这些垃圾，这些布碎垃圾，在这个城中村特别多，那布碎垃圾能不能作为一个创作的材料，艺术创作的材料？所以我们用了6个月的时间，我们和160个学生一起。然后和200个制衣工人一起，把这个他们每一天都抛弃的这些布碎、这些垃圾，然后我们捡回来，我们把它做成花。所以这是一个我也不知道哈，我是个建筑师，我也不知道这是个建筑工作坊还是个艺术工作坊还是个人类学工作坊，但我觉得没人在乎啊。这是我们一起做的所有的制衣工人。或者是他的小孩，或者是他们的家属，当然从中还有环卫工人，还有快递小哥，还有好多的住在城中村但是不被看见的，这一群人哈，就是在我们光鲜亮丽的城市下，永远都 不知道的这一些人。这里很多故事，但是因为只有10分钟哈，就是你无法去讲述每一个故事。这个是一个姓唐的阿姨，这是她租的一个出租房里，她的房间旁边是一个她住的床，床的旁边就是她的一个加工布睡的一个地方她有哮喘，所以她常年要戴着口罩。那这是另外一个姓唐的阿姨，是汤哈，那个是姓唐。然后这是她做的花，她做的花不像我们想象的花哈，艺术家或建筑师、设计师想象的花，她的花是这样的一个爱，因为她来到这个城中村已经20多年了，她对城中村是非常非常有爱的，所以她希望，用这个方式做了一朵花。这是我们的学生，很多很多的学生，我们有不同的工作坊。我们第一场工作坊，我们把做完的花种在了各种各样的垃圾堆上面。这个垃圾堆就是从来都没有人清理，就一直是积累在，这都是布碎哈，就这些都是一袋一袋的被抛掉的这些，做衣服用完的材料。然后我们也在这些建筑材料，就是城中村有特别多装修的地方，然后他们把装修的材料一般就是堆积在家前面哈，也没有人来清理，他也不会把它硬找，所以就整个地方就是一片废墟，所以我们也把它种在了这里，我们种在了2个城中村之间，没有被占用的这些灰色的空间里。种在了一些花坛，那这个花坛有的是没有植物了，有的植物已经快死了。所以为什么要这样做哈？其实有一个非常重要的一个就是，其实如果做花的话，我们跟200个志义工人做花，那其实是做花，是一次对志义工人的看见，我们看见他的背后的故事，我们看见他的遭遇。那种植其实是一次对公共空间的探讨哈，就是我们在种植这些地方种的时候，引来了特别多的当地的居民，这些住在附近的人，就是为什么我们要在这么臭的地方种花？然后我们学生呢就开始跟这些人讨论、聊天，所以对话变成了一个创作的方式哈，就是我们通过对话，我们告诉他们这些空间其实都可以变成公共空间，可以变成花园。那为什么没有人清理？这都是你们的地方，这是你们的社区。为什么我们不动手去行动，去把这些地方给清找？所以种花只是一个钩子哈，最重要的是通过种花，通过种植，去引发对话，去引发一个公众对公共区域的一个探讨。然后我们有幸受邀参加了2024啊，我写错了，不是2014啊，2024年的广州3年展，然后这个工作坊就是让我们重新把花，就是我们重新做了一批花哈，就我们又做了一次工作坊，跟志义工人一起。然后这一次我们种花种在了美术馆里面，就不是种在了这些废弃的垃圾堆里。所以这是我们在美术馆的一些效果，就这些花，跟放在城中村完全不一样了。然后这个展览其实分成了3部分哦，一部分是花坛上面的花，然后下面有一个种植盘，上面写出每一个志义工人的名字，然后他想表达的一句话，然后背景呢是那一些志义工人的照片，他们种花的照片，所以其实这个展览很简单，就是没有什么创造性哈，就是把它移植过来。很多的志义工人不愿意表达，就这个特别好玩哈，就是策展人告诉我，他说可不可以不要放黑色的方块，就去遮住眼睛，因为有的志义工人他不想被人看见他们的脸部，所以我们用了这个方式，隐蔽了他的眼睛，当策展人觉得这样特别像个罪犯哈， 所以他说能不能跟他们沟通，可把这个方块拿掉。但我觉得这挺好的哈，就是其实这个感觉就是代表了他们的一种境况，是吧？当城中村被拆的时候，他们没有任何潜力去为他们争取权益或者表达他们的声音。所以我觉得就这种感觉，我觉得我还挺喜欢的。我觉得我们可能不会太在乎他们看起来长得怎么样，我们更关心的是背后对他们所承受的这一些苦难。所以这些都是一些照片墙哈，就这一些他们的，有的人是 OK 的，然后这些是种植盘，他们写下了一句话，然后他们的名字，我觉得很多种植盘挺动人的哈，就是写了他们的感想。然后我们做错了很多事情啊，其实就这个项目，我不是在聊这个项目有多成功，我觉得其实我应该聊这个项目有多失败哈，就这本来就是一个挺失败的一个工作坊。第一个最大的失败是自己工人没有一个人来看展，但他们是创作工作者哈，在这个项目里已经写进名字的，就是自己工人是其中的一个创作团队，但是没有一个人在他们的城中村被拆迁之时，他们有心情来看这个展览。当然，这成就了我们的一个展览哈。所以其实我不太相信公众参与哈，这个公众参与在这个土地上，我觉得是非常难实现的，都是被迫参与的公众。所以，但第二个很失败的就是，其实这个花坛，是非常非常高的，因为为了增加效果和观看的效果，所以其实这是为成年人设计的一个展览。但是，当我们看到美术馆里有这么多小孩够不着的时候，然后你会想到这些城中村里的人哈，就是被忽视的人群，其实他们都是同样的一个看不见的人。当然，展览吸引了很多人来看哈，大部分网红啊拍照是吧？那这个不可避免的，我们今天处在这样的一个时代哈，艺术变成消费的一个东西。但当然，我们的作品也是在消费哈，没有达到一个公众参与的任何的一个可能性，所以都是在消费。但是通过探讨，我觉得还是有效果的。我们通过去探讨，他们不知道这个为什么这个作品会出现在这里，为什么要用布来做花，这个地方是在哪里，所以他们才开始慢慢关注康乐村，关注城中村里的制衣工人。对，我觉得最后一页就很快哈，就是其实附近就是附近其实。这项标一直在聊的东西哈，当然也是中国突然之间这几年在疯狂聊的一个东西。然后我觉得可能会比较遗憾吧，或者比较悲哀的去看到我们很多人喜欢把这些学术的名称哈变成一个项目包装的东西，或者说就像喊口号一样的打了鸡血一样的这种哈，所以我觉得附近，如果我的理解就是你要看见你周边的人，跟事是吧？就是从非常微小的地方出发。其实我第一版 PPT 给工作人员的时候，其实是真的我的附近，是我观察了一个停车空间，它每天都在变化。我想还是不讲这个了，对，所以我就讲了一个非常小的一个项目，但是如果这个项目要展开讲，我估计就2-3个小时也讲不完，但因为10分钟的时间很有限哈，所以，我也希望外国的朋友能依靠字幕，其实也不用看字幕哈，看看图也应该能够，对，能够大概知道这个项目背后的一些故事吧。好，谢谢你们。
Thank you for Jason Hu. Thanks for your inspiring presentation of the village within the city. So I would like to just explain it a little more to the Chris and also Janice, because the village in the city is a very special phenomenon in China's urban development. So as you can see, the professor just use the plant as a hook to interrupting this process to connect with the local people and just let us to reflect the idea of the nearby. Maybe the nearby is not only just like academic symbol, but just like you have to reconnect with the local people and you have to see them. So it's very inspiring. Thank you very much. Okay, so now let's welcome the second speaker. Is Janice Tim-Bottoms. Janice Tim-Bottoms is an associate professor in Concordia University. She is passionate about co-creating more accessible space for free community art making in order to increase understanding of ourselves, strengthen our relationship across diverse, and building meaningful community life. Her topic is La Rouge d'Art, building diverse community through creative conversation. Let's welcome.
Janice Tim-Bottoms 教授是加拿大康考迪亚大学美术学院助理教授、专业艺术治疗师 Creative NH Living Lab 项目首席成员。他发言的题目是“艺术方潮：通过创造性对话建立多元化社区”。Let's welcome.
婉仪，就是请你给他共享一下。
Janice said she want to have a try first.
Okay. Oh, it's great.
It should work.
Yeah, it's work.
Yeah. Hi there. Oh, thank you so very much for inviting me to join you tonight. This is, it's past my bed hour, so I'm not as chipper as I normally am, but what an opportunity to be here. So thank you very much. I want to, of course, begin by recognizing that Montreal Tiohtià:ke is on unceded Indigenous lands, and that the Kaniake people have been the caretakers of this land for many, many generations. And now I think all of us realize how incredibly important that is, that we have people that are dedicated their lives and many generations of lives of understanding the land and how it needs to be cared for. I wanted to share right from the beginning here two of our projects. The one on the left is one of our Concordia University art hives, where many students come, especially if they live away from Montreal and they're seeking connection. It's a very good anchor for them to engage in art making with others. The project on the right, I'll talk about a little bit. It's our Engage Living Lab Creative project that we ran in a mall and for 4 years during the COVID time. So we were often on in the mall and online. I mainly wanted to add this picture because the gentleman on the right there, George Hill, recently passed away. And he was a very influential person in our project. As you can see here, students engaged with community members made so much artwork together, and also learning from each other is really the emphasis of this project, of what La Rouge d'Art and the Art Hives movement has really been promoting. Also wanted to show one of our community art hives. We have about 40 art hives in Montreal. And it is simply an open, free, welcoming space. We really encourage self-direction so that people can gravitate to the materials that interest them most. It's, of course, open to anyone who would like to drop in. And it's free. So these are some of the qualities that we look for when we welcome people to come in. I wanted to give a little bit of a definition here about what we are using as our thought about community. So, when we think about community in the way that the art hives have developed it, I guess, is that it's not about people that may necessarily know each other or share things, that they are, most enjoy about life, but it's really built on people who feel that they are part of something that's bigger than themselves. So I guess in order to do that, we need spaces in order to build a community that requires each of us to see the strength of another, and that there's a potential in some sort of partnership. So this is a type of a definition from an educator, Goldsmith, who worked in inner cities quite a bit. And we've adopted that as one of our main ways of thinking about community. So the art hives did begin in Montreal in 2010. My students made it all happen. It was an idea ready to manifest, and I'm happy that it did. But these ideas come from the past, and certainly I started with these ideas in the 90s with individuals and families living homeless who really became my teachers, more than any kind of educational program that I learned from. But the idea of multiple knowledges is very important, so that people that have unique situations or are in a minority situation become teachers within these projects to really help us further our service to each other. There's a couple theories, and I'm only going to talk about two, but there's many theories that support this work. One, I'm sure that most of us in terms of in academia are aware of. It's called third space. And another word for it that Belenky came up with was the idea of a public home place. So that there's the sense that there's something between our private lives and our public lives, a place not located in our home and not located necessarily in our institutions, but something that helps us to meet in between. This type of environment used to be quite prolific when we lived in smaller villages or even in cities that had more of a Jane Jacobs idea of how it is that we interact with each other. Very dense, but on the street, eyes on the street, she would say. So this is a type of place where spontaneous things happen. We meet our neighbors outside of fixed rules, we don't have a big expectation of what we're going to be doing with each other. And the power differentials become a little bit more neutralized as people let go of their work lives and enter into a creative space. This is Lemeliu, one of our many, and actually now our oldest art hive in Montreal. Another theory that you may want to look into is liberation psychologies, which is such an important revisioning of psychology, which tends to look at individuals as their own problems and their own problems, instead of looking at the context in which people live and looking at the social determinants of health, which are so critical when you're thinking about difficulties that people are having with mental health issues. So this is a psychology that really supports rebuilding neighborhoods. And we use it a lot in training our students how to do this work. So why do people get together in this way? Why do they want to practice a more public practice type of art making? There are many reasons. My student, Rachel Cheney, who is now an instructor of this work, came up with these particular themes, and I think that they're good to share, that it's about social and cultural participation. Where do you go if you don't have money to interact in a cultural venue and participate with others? It's kind of hard to find. People go to it for their own creative expression, well-being. A very important aspect is a sense of belonging. And then, of course, with many of our recent projects like the Engaged Living Lab, we've focused a lot on social isolation. People like to come and share their work. They like being witnessed by others. It's pleasurable, and there's a mindfulness that can be evoked. So I want to go through 10 principles rather quickly, but principles that help us to guide people in starting these spaces, because now we have a large network of, I'll show you a map to demonstrate that, but almost 300 of them around the world, and different people have come to it from various walks of life and different reasons of why they want to start these spaces. But that's what we teach. We teach, how do you start these spaces? How do you facilitate them? And these are 10 principles we ask people to consider when they would like to join in this network. So the first principle is extremely important. It's welcoming everyone. You know, the first thing is about radical hospitality of whoever is entering into that space, welcoming them as if we know that they need to be there. So, you know, we use this idea that everyone is an artist, and it comes from Dasanayaki's work, and she actually should be credited on this slide, that art making is a human behavior, that we believe that well, Dasanayaki believes that even animals participate in art making things special. And certainly people do. It's very natural. And when it's not, it's usually because it's been taught out of us. This is the interior of our first project called La Ruche d'A, which was located in St. Henry neighborhood. We oftentimes have exhibits that include the whole community to participate. The second quality is that this work fosters self-directed experiences of creativity, learning, and skill sharing. So we have adopted the idea of each one teach one, as opposed to teaching a class how to make an object with different steps. We want people to explore the materials in such a way that everything becomes a piece of art creation, that making special happens throughout our day in a very natural way. So the third one is that we create, sorry, I can't see my screen, the capacities of, I know what I'll do, hold on, my little booklet here. Sorry, I can't read the screen.
Solidarity, not charity.
Thank you. Yes, that's the main idea of this. So yeah, the idea is that everyone comes to this with their own abilities. No matter what situation they're in, they have something that they can share. And it's a very important reminder of people, especially those dealing with mental health issues, that we facilitate the space knowing that something has worked in their day. And whatever that is, we want to hear about it and make it work even better. So we don't look at things that aren't working. And, you know, this is an art therapy / art education model. And so we are thinking about how to make this a safer and brave space for people to share who they are.
Sorry about interruption. It's like 10 minutes. Could you wrap up the session, please?
Yes. Okay. Sorry, it just stopped working. Okay, I'll just wrap up by saying that you can find all these principles online. We have, this is free downloadable Art Hive How-To Kit. It has all the information to offer to you if you would like to consider creating a space like this in your own neighborhood. I'm sorry that I'm running out of time, and that I'm no longer able to move my slides.
Okay. Janice, thank you.
Yes. But I will, I'll just go ahead and stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. Thanks for your wonderful, inspiring sharing. And from your sharing, we can know that community is a concept that a different group maybe have the common idea and to have sense of the similarity or some common value. So based on this premise, we can establish the public home place, and in order to decrease the social isolation, yeah, that inspire us a lot. Maybe we can discuss it later. So now I will introduce the third guest of this part. Please hold for a minute. Yeah, so this is Christian Langers. And Christian Langerson earned his doctorate in Egyptology from the FU Berlin from 2021 to 2023. He was a postdoctoral fellow at the Peking University School of Art. His topic is Bridging the Far and the Near, Art Education, Community Engagement, and Empowerment in Ancient Egyptian Heritage. Let's welcome.
Christian Langer 是一名埃及学专家，在柏林自由大学获得了埃及学博士学位，北京大学艺术学院担任博士后研究员，优秀博士后奖获得者。他发言的题目是“架起远与近的桥梁：古埃及遗产中的艺术教育与社区赋权”。让我们欢迎。
Yeah, hello from early morning, Berlin. Thank you very much for the introduction. And let me organize my slides here. Okay, my screens, my displays. First of all, thank you very much to Kangkang and Nanan for the invitation to speak at this event. So talking about art education, or what we rather call community engagement in ancient Egyptian heritage, or Egyptian archaeology rather, I have to say I'm not a practitioner, but from the angle of my work as an historian of the history of Egyptology, which concludes part of my research, I think I can give some information about the big picture of what this is all about. So we have basically 4 points on the agenda for the next 9 to 10 minutes. First, I want to give some basic definitions of what community engagement in archaeology and Egyptian archaeology entails, to then give you a brief background into Egyptian archaeology and its close relationship with international relations, so that is colonialism to be specific, and then go into the specifics, what community engagement in Egyptian archaeology is, what it looks like, and to then finish off with the purpose of the whole thing. Like, why do people engage in community engagement in Egyptian archaeology? So now talking about definitions, what is community engagement in archaeology, or you would call it art education? Since not everyone of our group may be familiar with what archaeology is specifically, I'm giving you the basic definition that is around in Anglo-Saxon archaeology. So in Germany, we might have a different understanding of that. In China, you might have a different idea of what Kaogu entails. But in the Anglo-Saxon tradition, archaeology is simply the study of the human past through its material remains. And another term that is relevant to us now, that is the specific community engagement in archaeology, we can find in a more recent encyclopedia of global archaeology that community engagement includes people somehow vested or with a connection in the archaeological record that is not professional. So not the archaeologists as such, but rather local communities, for instance, or other people connected to that. Now, in this context, we also look at so-called cultural heritage outreach, which is from the same encyclopedia says, is an active, context-specific and multilateral process in which practitioners and stakeholders work together to define and develop both tangible and intangible aspects of an area's heritage. So it's basically similar to community engagements, professional archaeologists coming together with local stakeholders or other stakeholders. Apologies for the slides jumping forward. Apparently, I included a timer of the slides, hence the going back and forth. Now, more specifically, what is community engagement in archaeology about? What are archaeologists doing and why? So community engagement is very much about sharing their interpretations of the material record, of what happened in the past, what people did in the past, and make those accessible to a wide audience. The general idea is that our research as archaeologists or historians should benefit modern groups with ties to the site, like the local communities, for instance, or local authorities. One of the purposes is very much to enhance heritage tourism, which would obviously benefit the cash flow into the local community. At least that's the underlying idea. And they would also enhance the status. Local groups might get recognition. We've seen that from some indigenous groups in North America that we've listened to in other talks already. Now, archaeologists also think that we have an ethical or political obligation to be beneficial to the local groups precisely because of former colonial ties, which is especially pronounced in the case of Egyptian archaeology. We're going to talk about that in a few moments. And for the archaeologists themselves, we hope that community engagement might increase our research capacity in the sense of the understanding of the site, and that we might also get access to important data included in oral histories, for instance, or knowledge about local sites or geography that be otherwise inaccessible to the professionals. Community engagement is ideally not just a one-way road, especially not a dead end. The idea is also very much to include the community members, to influence research agendas, to provide their input, so that also archaeologists might learn things about, as I said, the site, or also adjust their methods and theories. And in this chart that I made for this talk, you can see archaeology at the bottom, which then feeds into two distinct yet somehow interrelated aspects: the already community archaeology that we've heard about, and then we also have so-called public archaeology, which is an area that ultimately means how we archaeologists or historians convey our archaeological knowledge to the public and how the public uses that. So it's a two-way thing. You can see community and archaeology and public archaeology somehow intersect. So I would argue from a theoretical perspective, community archaeology and public archaeology ultimately combine into what you would call art education, which then takes place in the museums, in schools, and so on and so on. So now, quickly, the background of Egyptian archaeology. Some of you might already know that, but some others may not. Egyptian archaeology was basically a result of geopolitical competition, especially between France and Britain around the year 1800 during the Napoleonic Age, when France invaded Ottoman Egypt at the time and conquered it and started to survey the archaeological relics, but not just the ancient Egyptian heritage, also the Islamic, the medieval heritage. But this was pretty much the foundational period of the academic discipline that we now call Egyptology, which led to all sorts of other things like excavations in Egypt, or simply the ability to read Egyptian hieroglyphs through the discovery of the 2-language and 3-script Rosetta Stone. And since then, let's go back to that slide to show the map of this cartogram of states that are active in Egyptian archaeology. Today, it has become very much a hotbed of international activity. A lot of prestige is attached to being active in Egyptian archaeology. All this coming out of European colonialism over the past 200 years and geopolitical rivalry since then that adds an added dimension to historical responsibility to engage with local communities and be somewhat beneficial to them. Let's move forward. So what does that look like in practice? As I said, I'm not a practitioner, so I can't give many details about how my colleagues would do that. So I had to look at their publications about this topic, which that there is actually a lot about. So one outreach activity or community engagement activity is to bring in local groups, local stakeholders from the authorities or villages, for instance, to the actual excavation site and simply show them around, tell them what you're doing. We have similar things in Germany, although very rarely. When you excavate in Germany, which are usually rescue excavations, locals usually pass by, but we don't really have these organized tours. This is more specific to the Egyptian context. The other context is you go into the schools and teach children about what you're doing. And one variation of that is the children's book with illustrations where you teach children about the history of the local site, or generally about the ancient Egyptian past. Towards the end of the presentation, I want to synthesize everything into the bigger picture. What is the purpose of community engagement in Egyptian archaeology? First of all, we can summarize the sites where community engagement and art education takes place in this context are at the excavation sites, in museums, schools, and generally the villages, and they seem to be especially aimed at local children. They result in a closer relationship between archaeologists and locals, and this is where we can combine the far and the near, the far being especially the foreign archaeologists, the foreign teams, and the near being the locals. The locals can learn about the site, the past, and presumably their identity, although as compared with the other talks that we've heard, the objects of archaeologists, or the topic is people who lived and died like 300,000 years ago, which is very different from the other contexts. The idea is that community engagement enhances research, and from the larger perspective, we have to say they provide legitimacy for the archaeological project as such, for their existence, and especially for the presence of foreign teams in Egypt. Now, I'm showing you on the top right side an image from one of the biggest coal mines in Germany, where incidentally archaeology also takes place because the companies are legally obliged to conduct archaeological surveys. And at the bottom, you have an image from an excavation in the urban Nile Delta. Now, archaeology has been linked to extractivism because you remove stuff from the ground by force. This has been compared to the fossil industry. And in this sense, I have to say that community engagement provides legitimacy for that act of extraction and the display of artifacts, the extraction being a colonial practice in and of itself. We can say that it provides employment and training for the locals to benefit the project and the extraction process. It's an economic factor. It factors into the heritage industry, the international art market, and tourism. It produces the products that especially wealthy people then like to invest in, buy pieces from ancient Egypt, especially if there's a royal name on it. It's also a political factor. It feeds into Egyptian nationalism when the local authorities use community engagement to form people's identity around ancient Egypt and generate legitimacy from the deep past. Using the past selectively in this context, it legitimizes foreign activity in Egypt through cultural diplomacy. And it showcases that archaeology is ultimately that the past in the context of archaeology is ultimately a multivariate resource. And I'm saying this because community engagement in Egypt would ultimately also be a factor to China, because China has been active in Egyptian archaeology as well since 2018. And I'm going to wrap things up here and end things with my references, which you can screenshot quickly if you want. Other than that, I thank you for listening. Thank you very much. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chris. Thanks for your inspiring idea of the combination between the communicate engagement and the public engagement in the art archaeology perspective. Yeah, it's give us a new perspective to think about art education, especially in archaeology, and also the economic and the political element in this attention. So thank you very much. And I have to say that we have an adjustment to the discussion because of the time limit, we have to combine the topic 2 and topic 3 discussion after the topic 3. So now we will jump into the topic 3, and let me share my screen to introduce our topic. So the topic 3 is art education and the accessibility. We ask about how can art education provide more nearby residents with access to more resource. We invite Hu Jun from Hangzhou Normal University, Suren Yao athlete original from Ghana in Western African, and Beverly Ohashi from Laurent College in Canada to share their experience from China, African, and Canada.
第3个话题，艺术教育与可及性，聚焦艺术教育与社会资源的公正分配。这一部分关注的问题是艺术教育如何让更多资源覆盖附近。我们邀请来自中国杭州师范大学美术学院艺术教育系的胡俊教授，来自加纳的音乐教育家 Suren Yao Affiliate， 以及来自加拿大罗瑞学院的 Beverly Ohash 校长，共同分享来自中国、非洲和加拿大的经验。
Hu Jun is a Dean of Artographic Research Center, Professor of Department Art Education and Faculty of Fine Art of Hangzhou Normal University. His topic is Reverse Inclusion as Weak Pedagogy to Bridge Social Fault Lines. Let's welcome.
胡俊是杭州师范大学美术学院艺术教育系教授 ，Artography 研究中心主任。他发言的题目是逆向融合弥合社会断层的弱者道之用。让我们欢迎胡俊教授。
我今天的演讲题目呢，叫弱者道之用，跨越社会裂隙的逆向融合教育学。我今天的演讲内容呢，主要是分这3个方面。第一个方面是何为逆向融合。逆向融合我把它译为 reverse inclusion， 然后呢，我会讨论如何通过逆向融合来跨越社会的裂隙。在这里呢，我有5个案例做分享，但由于时间的关系，我可能先分享前面2个。当我分享完第2个以后，如果时间已经不够了，已经到第9分钟了，那请这个主持人提醒我一下，那我后面我就不做分享了。然后呢，我会做个总结。有这个教育法它的一个道家的思想的基础。什么是逆向融合？逆向融合呢，有2个项目被纳入到美丽中国100个项目里头，也就这100个项目里头有2个都是我的逆向融合项目。其中一个呢是盲人的美术教育项目，还有一个呢是乡村跨代美育项目。这2个项目，前者呢解决了盲人融入社会的一个难题。后者呢是解决了乡村老龄化和空心化带来的乡村文化的消失的问题。那跟这个美丽中国项目呢，他也做了一个提案，这个提案是提交到中国的人大和政协2个政策制定的机构，这题目就叫逆向融合。那我提出的逆向融合的目标呢，是用艺术的创造性来服务社会，来解决我们的社会问题。来实现一个更加美好的中国。当人家问我想象未来的中国什么样，那我想象我说我们未来的中国是一个诗意的一个生活方式，回到我们中国的传统当中，这才是一个未来的中国。那我举一个例子，我怎么来实现这样？这是一个在这个盲人学校的学习方式。这些孩子呢，他是没有图像的，他的课本呢上面只有盲文。那这样呢，对于他们的学习的资源来讲，他就是远远弱于普通的孩子。那这样的一种障碍呢，就导致了他们融入社会是极大的困难。这样的盲校的围墙就成了一个 一个也可以算是一个裂隙吧，一个社会的裂隙，把他们跟这个社会区隔开来。那这样呢，我呢就带入了这个盲人的绘画教育。这个绘画教育呢一开始很难被接受，但是非常快就取得了成果。我是16年开始这个项目的，到17年12月份，就在我们浙江省最高端的美术馆，办了一个展览。这是当时的展览的现场。这个呢就改变了大家对盲人的态度。而且盲人呢对自我的认知也发生了很大改变。后来人们有媒体采访盲人的时候，就问他们：你们以后想做什么？跟我们学习版画的这个孩子们就说：我们想，也很多人就说我想成为艺术家。这就改变了以前盲人的那种自我认知。他说，在我们做这个项目之前，我们觉得自己和别人是不一样的，但做了这个项目之后，虽然我们是盲人，但我没觉得自己跟别人有任何的不同，有任何的弱势，甚至觉得自己有强势。他们的强势也被体现在这个项目当中。这个呢是一个大虫洞艺术项目。这个项目呢是让盲人教普通孩子触觉版画。这个呢就普通人是眼睛是蒙起来的，由盲人来指导他们。在这里头呢，每一个来玩的孩子都可以从这里带走任何一件礼物，但带走之前他必须把它用版画的方式表达出来。在这整个过程当中他是不能看的。而这时候盲人是非常自然的环境，所以他们在这里就成了非常好的老师。而普通孩子在这个过程当中，他体验到一种极其强烈的刺激所以呢也非常喜欢这个项目。然后这个项目呢，我们还被这个中央电视台报道过2次。然后哈佛大学残障发展项目的研究员专门过来体验这个项目。当时呢，这位呢郭瑞教授，他是专门做残疾人的平权这个法律保护的。然后他呢就说这个项目让他真正理解了什么是平权。因为他说，我原来虽然做这个工作，但我内心并不是真正的相信这个平等的权利。但在这个项目当中，他用自己的，他参与了这个项目，所以他能感受到这样的真正的平等。这个蔡聪呢，他也是一个中国的网红他呢也是一个盲人他说呢，这个项目是让他真正体验到盲人的一种释放了他的一种内心的情感，让他感到自己是一个真正自由的人这是第一个跟大家分享的项目。那这个项目的一个案例呢，就是一个逆向融合的项目。所谓逆向融合呢，就传统的融合教育，它是以普通人为中心，用普通人的教育方式来包容特殊的人群。但这个呢，对于盲人来讲是非常困难的而且对于大多数的特殊人群来说，这个过程都是非常痛苦的。那我们用艺术创造的方式，创造一种符合特殊人群特点的一种艺术项目，比如说用版画。那盲人他也是有触觉的，他就可以用版画的方式来表达他自己。然后他呢，因为触觉比一般人更加敏感，而且他有新的认知世界的角度。那这样呢，他们会给我们普通人很多的启发。那这样呢，就盲人的绘画就具有了一种非常独特的一种魅力。那这样呢，就形成了一种以特殊人群为中心，来包容普通人群的这样的一种融合教育方式。这种教育方式对于特殊人群来说是更加的友好，而对于普通人群来说是更有教育意义的。所以这样呢，我们就通过艺术创造和艺术教育实现了一种反向的融合，就以特殊人群为中心来实现一个社会的融合。我再举一个例子这个呢是在2020年疫情期间，我在加拿大做的一个项目。当时呢，因为这个疫情的影响，我被留在蒙特利尔没法离开。那当时呢，这个 Chinese virus 这个说法呢，对于我们中国人来讲很不友好我真的也感到很不舒服那当时呢，我也很郁闷。我在河边呢，正好这个有很多碎石头，我就拿石头来搭建这样的一种叠石艺术项目，让自己能够得到内心的平衡这时候呢，就来了一个人问我，我能不能拍照？我说可以 他说我代表这个城市，谢谢你。我说你为什么代表这个城市？他说我是市长。他说你的作品给我带来了内心的平静。我听到这个话以后，我发现这个不仅能给我自己带来平静，也能够给更多的人带来平静。于是呢，我就持续在那做这个项目，最后是把整个几公里长的一个河岸都变成了一个公共艺术项目。这个项目呢，持续了整个春天，这样呢，成了整个社区在疫情期间最快乐的一件事情。大家都来搭建或者过来看因为搭建的时候它能够保持社交距离，那个河岸非常长，而且不需要同时来所以这个就变成了一个非常活跃的一个社区的活动。在那疫情封闭期间，这个项目是大家最快乐的项目。那同时呢，它也解决了我的内心的这种不舒服的感觉因为我跟社区之间就建立一种非常友好的一种相互的一种学习的一种关系我看来我还有一点时间这是另外的一个项目，也是大概16年开始的这叫大强之光项目。这个项目呢是在监狱里面，是个未成年犯的监狱或者叫管教中心。在这里头呢，我希望能够帮助到这些未成年人我发现他们其实还是并不是那么十恶不赦的，还是有机会让他们得到很好的教育。所以呢，我跟监狱建议我来给他们做一个艺术项目当时呢因为他们在监狱里面是受到严格的限制的，很多艺术材料都不能使用但是呢，这些年轻人呢特别有活力都是一些这个荷尔蒙非常旺盛的小男孩那这样呢，
老师，您现在已经还有9分钟时间，您还有1分钟时间。
好，那我就很快说那这个项目呢，后来我就用光绘的方法，这样呢在监狱里不会留下任何的痕迹，然后把这些作品呢又带到社区，指引社区的创作，最后就形成了一个社区和他们互动的关系。这个呢在美术馆的展览也非常成功。这个呢项目进一步发展呢就到残疾人社区为残疾人引导残疾人进行创作这个项目呢也是非常成功就叫残疾人之家的一个项目。那这个总而言之呢，这个项目的逻辑呢就叫做下去就是一种逆向融合，它是一种中国传统的一种解决问题的方案。这个方案呢叫做反者道之动，弱者道之用它这个理论呢，如果是用当代的教育哲学的话，就 weak pedagogy 这是巴西的一位非常重要的教育哲学家教育学家他提出来一个理论。这个理论呢，在我们2000年前的《道德经》里当中就有提到这就是弱者成为一种创造力的来源。好，由于时间关系，我就讲到这里，谢谢。
谢谢胡俊教授. Thanks for your wonderful, inspiring idea, and we are so moved. As you can see, there is some comment in our form, and everyone says that it's very moved. And we fear that you use your artwork just to connect the whole world, especially in the COVID-19, and also some different kinds of group. So we are so moved. Thank you very much. Thank you for your contribution to put the Chinese art into the world and make everyone know it better. Thank you very much. Okay, and the next, I just want to make sure, Sarah, are you stay here?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, it's great. I will introduce you. Please hold for a minute.
That's okay.
Okay, can you see my slide? Okay, thank you. So our next speaker is Zerong Yawu Athlete, original from Ghana in Western Africa, currently pursuing a PhD at the University of Western Ontario, Canada. Her topic is culturally artful, nurturing sustainable culture connection through deep play in education. Let's welcome.
Siram Yau Athlete 是来自西非加纳的艺术家、音乐教育家，加拿大西安大略大学教育学博士。他发言的题目是“文化角度中的艺术，在教育中通过深度游戏培养可持续的文化联系”。Let's welcome.
Thanks, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, great. So I do have heavy names, and they are all Ghanaian. Serum Yawapalite. If you hear my first name, it tells you where I come from. My second name, Yawo, means I'm born on a Thursday, and Apalita means it's my dad's name. So if I get lost, you know where to send me. Yeah. So thanks for the opportunity to learn and share on this wonderful forum. I will be talking about this ethnographic study I undertook last year, titled Culturally Artful Nurturing Sustainable Cultural Connections Through Deep Play in Education. So in the last 2 years, I have encountered several Ghanaian parents who are deeply concerned about their children gradually detaching from their Ghanaian cultural roots. By the way, I'm from Ghana, from West Africa, as you heard. And yeah, so some of these children know very little about their culture, and my personal interactions with them revealed a pervasive lack of knowledge about their culture, with even those who had grown up in it gradually losing touch. And a few studies indicate that, I don't know if the slide is changing, but yeah, okay, fantastic. Okay, great. So a few studies indicate that the Ghanaian children residing in Canada and even the US progressively losing touch with their cultural heritage. And this has been quite a concern. So Ghanaian children face conflicts between their parents' expectations to preserve their heritage and like the social and economic advantages of integrating into like the dominant culture. And sometimes they feel a little like, you know, discouraged or maybe embarrassed, even when it comes to speaking their heritage language, because of their accent and many other reasons. But one significant area of dissonance is the tension between the desire to maintain the cultural heritage and the pressures of assimilation in a new cultural environment. So although, like, you know, there are economic and social reasons that discourage individuals from connecting to their culture, like many people also wish they can connect to their culture, or at least maybe their children were. So this is the case for the Ghanaian parents I encountered in London, Ontario, who are concerned about their children losing touch with their cultural heritage. And so I began to think of how to help the situation through the lens of music education, which is a discipline I'm affiliated with. And so through this autoethnographic study, I explored how Ghanaian music could connect one to their culture through arts-based research and using deep play as a theoretical framework. So I explored how the concept of deep play could enhance cultural understanding using the Ghanaian art music, specifically Bonre Kente, which I'll be playing to you shortly. And I use this music as a focal point for various artistic expressions such as drawing, painting, threading, scripting, and soundscape. And the question may arise that why embark on this journey if I'm already Ghanaian? And this is a query I pondered myself, and I was really surprised what came out of it. This is a very long research question, but it can be split into two, where I come in from the autoethnographic aspect, and then the other part of it is like the future, what I want to do to help them, the children in London, Ontario, connect to their culture. So in summary, it's just how does the artist's personal engagement with the Bonre Kente music, incorporating visual and performing arts through deep play influence the cultural understanding and connection to the Ghanaian heritage. Now, before I move on, I would like to explain certain terminologies and also ideas that may be unfamiliar with us. I'll skip these ones because I'm happy to share the slides, but since this is more cultural, I would like to explain these. So kente is a colorful fabric originating from Ghana with, intricate patterns, and it's made from silk and cotton, and it's very rich in, its symbolism related to the Akan history and beliefs. And so it's mostly used in special events like, weddings, festivals, etc. And it mostly represents cultural pride for the Ghanaian and the Africans worldwide. Dinkra symbols, these are visual representations of concepts, proverbs, and philosophical ideas originating from the Akan people of Ghana. And these symbols are traditionally used on fabrics, pottery, architecture, and in various forms of visual arts. And each symbol carries its own meaning and significance. Deep play, which I use as my theoretical framework, Ackerman describes it as an immersive experience marked by risk, fun, wonder, adventure, ordeal, which just goes beyond mere entertainment to unveil moments of clarity, discovery, revelation, and self-acceptance. So I use kente and Dinkra symbols in my artwork. So I was also pondering on why do I see the relevance of art in connecting to one's culture, and what we have all shared really resonates with what I'm also about to say. And so I realized that, experiencing or experimenting by intentionally closing my eyes and opening my ears and vice versa, whenever I'm listening to or watching or at a performance, watching music from diverse cultures, I discovered that, what I saw was art, what I heard was art. So why the divergence between, what we hear and what we see? And this revelation, this made me realize that the music of diverse cultures blends smoothly with various art forms, whether, visual, performing arts, etc. So this is the music that I used. I would have to kind of, yeah. Let me know if you can hear it. Maybe you can just give me a thumbs up or something. Fantastic. Okay, I'll go back to sharing this slide. So if you noticed, that's how kente is originally woven in the Ghanaian culture. Great. And so these are the artifacts I came up with, I did just by listening to the song to connect me with the culture. And so wherever I did, the spaces where I had these artifacts born were what I called my playground, my home, and then the office. And so you see me painting here in the office. Sometimes I'll listen to the music, come back to it, what's he telling me, etc. So this is one of it, the what we call Anansi the spider. So this is a carefully crafted spider in its web with the colors of Ghana, and it's made of thread work and painted, colors, and it conveys the inception of kente through a clever spider character called Anansi. And this creation aimed to articulate and ground the historical aspect of kente itself. I do have a minute or so. This is Akoma. Akoma is it means love in the Ghanaian language or the Akan language. And so this was also born out of it. the theme of, what I was working on. This is also I will remember. So this artifact titled I Remember serves as a reminder of my commitment to help the Ghanaian Canadian London, Ontario connect back to their culture. So if you look at this carefully, London, the color London represents, I think green represents London. So if you come to London, Ontario, it's green mostly. And the whale is the color of Canada, and then remember is the colors of the Ghanaian flag. We do have this. So the story of Wanre Kente is telling what this song is about. So when you watch this, you would be able to tell that if you do understand the language, of course, of what you're singing in the song, the Akan language, you'll be able to tell what this song is about. I've tried it with most of my friends. I'm like, can you guess what song is this? And then they are able to easily tell. This took me the longest time to make. I do have it here with me. I don't know if you can see, but the back really looks messy. But this was a breakthrough also for me. I incorporated both, the colors of Kente and the symbols forming what harmony means. So in conclusion, this work emphasized the role of arts education in promoting cultural sustainability. So by embedding cultural knowledge within the arts, we ensure that traditions are not only preserved, but also dynamically adapted and passed down through generations. And this approach supports the development of culturally competent and globally aware individuals who can navigate and contribute to a diverse world. So my final words were to be that let us advocate for policies that support cultural education and recognize the arts as a vital component of a well-rounded curriculum. So by doing this, we can also nurture a generation of learners who are deeply connected to their cultural heritage and confident in even their identities and equipped to contribute to a vibrant and multicultural world. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Aflate. I think you give us a very good perspective to use the art education to connect with different people, including the children and other groups. And I also guess that your sharing is connected with the Professor Jill Cotter, especially use both say the connection between different people and use your sense, such as the listening and the experience to connect with others people. So maybe I think this form is also a connection between you both, and maybe you can just talk it later. Okay, thank you. So there is another speaker I want to introduce. Let me sharing my screen. Okay. So yeah, let's welcome the Beverly Ohashi. She is the director and supervising principal of Lauren College, Canada. Her topic is how to develop art education based on community art resource, practical experience at the Lauren College. Let's welcome.
Beverly Ohashi 是加拿大罗瑞学院董事兼监督校长，他发言的题目是如何基于社区艺术资源发展艺术教育，罗瑞学院的实践经验。Let's welcome.
Thank you for that invitation and welcome. I am happy to be part of this forum and to hear all the perspectives of how art is transformed in the different communities and cultures and countries. At Laureate College, it began in 2012 when we began in Toronto, but during the pandemic, the online courses was the way in which we had continued to offer courses to our students. And then in 2022, we reopened in Burlington, and now we live on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe First Nations of Canada. We are happy to be part of the Burlington campus, which is quite different from Toronto, which is a vibrant metropolitan city, and Burlington being much smaller has
Sorry, Beverly.
Yes.
So sorry to interrupt you, but we cannot see your slide.
Oh, okay. There. Do you see now?
No, maybe you have to put the sharing button.
Nope, I have that.
Oh, so it doesn't work yet?
I see it on my screen.
Oh, so maybe it doesn't work. Wan Yi, can you help the Beverly to share her screen?
So yeah,
Oh, yeah.
over
Now we can see your
her
screen.
now. And if you
Yeah.
try again to
Yeah, you can try to open it again.
There.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
Okay. All right. So the first slide is just to give you the introduction so you didn't miss anything. And just to give you the background that we reopened in September 22, and we started the arts program because my background coming from Earl Haig and the Claude Watson program is to really bring the balance and the importance of the arts into the high school secondary level. Our motto at Laureate College is to look at transforming people and forward learning. And the reason for that is to make sure that we are preparing students for their lives once they leave high school. And during that process, they do transform and change to what they are learning in the classroom, but also in the outdoor communities and what we are doing specifically into the gifted arts program. So when we began in September of 2023, we started the STEAM project, which is the Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Mathematics initiative, which our focus is on the arts. And that is because we did our demographics in this community to realize that a lot of the private schools and public high schools really focus on the science and engineering and architecture, and we wanted to bring that element of the arts, the arts that are also tied to all those subject areas, but to put that emphasis into the importance of arts in our community. Throughout all our courses, we really push the global competencies, and though there are 6 of them that we emphasize into our curriculum, and they are the importance of communication, collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, character, and citizenship. So the next thing we did was spend some time on defining the beliefs and values of our gifted program. And the foundation of this is to really look at engaging students and to develop the kind of courses they wish to take. So we look at critical thinking, inquiry-based learning, and student-centered activities. The students have to choose a major in an arts program plus a minor, and therefore they would take the major throughout the 10 months, and the minor would be in a specific term. The OSSD, which is the Ontario Secondary School Diploma, does require 40 hours of community service, of which our art students would do these 40 hours in the community, but in addition, they also must participate in 4 community arts-based activities in the area. And so therefore, it may be attending a master class, participating in a local arts event, attending the Art Gallery of Burlington, and other arts-based competitions and photo contests. In the spring, we do hope to have an art showcase. We had planned one for April this year, but due to other workloads and issues, we decided to delay it for the next year to give us more time to build our awareness and outreach into this community, since we've only arrived here since 2022. And therefore, at this event, we hope that we would have some art installations from our local artists, but also our students in terms of their contributions and their achievements. We have over 50 acres of land here and 140,000 square feet in the building. So we do want the students to explore the importance of art installations inside and outside. And therefore, we do talk about, similar to what was mentioned earlier about a third space, we have the third teacher. And the third teacher is because the first teacher is the teacher themselves in the classroom. The second teacher is often the resources and also the students themselves. And the third teacher is the physical building and the physical space in which they should be able to use that for which their learning continues and they are inspired by what they see around them. I mentioned about the outdoor space because of all this campus space we have, and therefore what we are looking for is ways in which the outdoor space can be an extension to the arts, whether they're using the physical elements that are on this campus, or looking at the visually attractive scenes that they see. So this fall we did invite a guest artist, Daniel Tamburo, and he demonstrates plein air painting, drawing. So he really works on teaching the students how to use the outdoor space and surroundings to demonstrate the art. We also invited B.D. Colin, who is a Pulitzer-Prize photographer from New York City, and he captures street photos. So he brings in the image that there is a lot of art that's in this community and the resources are there for things that people may not notice because they are things that people kind of pass by and not pay attention. The other area that we are trying to do within the building itself is to create an arts hub so that we are hoping that this is not a space that's only for students and visitors, but artists can also share the space and set up their workshops and use our facilities. So the other part that we are experiencing, as many high schools have in Ontario, is establishing an arts program because there is such a reduction of funding from the province. And therefore, when the overall funding is reduced for our schools, the area that tends to get affected most is the arts, because there's still the belief that the academics has more weight than the arts. Although, schools like Laureate tries very hard to put the image and the emphasis on the arts, and therefore we don't choose to cut in an area that we think is most important for which to keep the sustainable culture and community resources in this area. When I was principal at Earl Haig, we would only receive about $100,000, and it may seem a lot for a lot of people for a gifted arts school, and there were only 4 in the Toronto District School Board. And that was not enough for me to support the 5 areas of dance, drama, music, screen arts, and visual arts. I still needed to generate another $60,000 in order to support these programs because the music in particular with the string arts program was very expensive to sustain the instruments and the materials required. So the $60,000 was often supported by the parents themselves through the events that we would hold throughout the school year. And something that has changed because the politicization of the public board is that there has been a change in the audition process in order to make sure that accessibility is there for all students and move to a lottery system. At Laureate, we are still continuing with the audition system, but we do ensure that there is equitable access to our programs for those who are in the marginalized racial groups and those who may not have the kind of background or exposure to the arts when they are young. Those are factors we do consider when they are auditioning for our program.
Sorry about interruption. It's like 10 minutes. Could you wrap up the session, please?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so what is important is that we start to begin to change the perception of arts and making seem as important as the academics, and having opportunities like this starts to make that a change in terms of what we can all do as people who support the arts. This last slide is just to looking at the different sustainable ways in which we use community resources at our school. And these are all the activities that we do to ensure we have as much resources that are available. one area that I think we undermine is our students themselves. They do have a lot of ability and skills that they can give to the school. And I think this is something that we are emphasizing for them to help build our program at Laureate College. So this is where my final slide is about defining and relearning how we look at increasing student engagement and putting the importance on the arts. Most important that our students may not all become artists themselves, but we do hope that they all become patrons of the arts, as the arts are important to define the communities that surrounds our schools and our world. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. Thanks for your experience as a manager or the principal to organize the art education program in the school. From your perspective, we can know the organization's ambition and aim, and also the financial challenge of it. And more important, I think you mentioned the perception of the art, which is very important to make others notice the art education's importance in communicating engagement. So it's very wonderful idea. So I think maybe just in the discussion part, we can talk it, elaborate it a little more. So until now, topic 2 and topic 3 is finished, and we are so thankful for all the participants to sharing your wonderful idea about your country, your culture, and also your lived experience. And in your saying, we can know that no matter the placemaking and the accessibility, it's all about who can participate in the communicating engagement and in will and do what. So this meant also linked to the words empowerment, as Chris also mentioned it. So maybe we can just start from here to say about how does art education give some power to the local people, and how does this resource can be accessed to the public, and how the people will use this resource to do what they think is worth to do. So maybe Chris, can you just start to talk about your idea about empowerment, and also you can share your idea for the other people speaker. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that question, for that prompt. This issue of empowerment in ancient Egyptian heritage, I think that's a tricky one. We have to disentangle that somewhat from these Canadian and other indigenous contexts, I believe. Then the group in Egypt that gets primarily empowered, that's the government or the authorities, let's say the stakeholders with an economic stake in Egyptian heritage that uses that as a resource, and probably also the foreign archaeologists working in these projects, which also use archaeology as a resource to be employed as archaeologists, also to have exhibitions abroad. Of course, the whole point or the hook of community engagement in Egyptian archaeology is very much to benefit the locals. It does benefit them. It gives them jobs. They can work in the tourism industry in the end. But I would still argue they are rather at the receiving end. Like most of the spoils, most of the fruits are reaped by especially the Egyptian government. They use it as an economic and political resource. So that's why I that's why I operated with these brackets in the title with empowerment. It's empowerment, but it's also very much about power.
Okay. Thanks for your critical perspective of empowerment and power. Yes, it's related. So maybe I think Janice also have something to talk about this, because you have mentioned that communities idea, and you have mentioned to use the third space, which is also a critical theoretical framework to analyze the public home place. So maybe can you just elaborate it a little more?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to do that. I think that academics really have a responsibility to turn the lens to this local knowledge, because we're entering into such a rapidly changing environment with academia, and we don't have those answers anymore. Like we really, we don't. It's not the plan anymore to study indigenous cultures. We now need the knowledge to save our planet. For example, one of the ways we've been doing that is focusing on what we've been calling community-defined evidence, so that our research can really be directly asking different populations, individuals that come into the Engaged Living Lab, what matters to you? What do you want to see more of? What would help the problems that we're talking about today, for example? I think that it makes a big difference pausing to hear the answers from people. And I think that is incredibly empowering. It also, I think through art making, it fosters agency within an individual to recognize that they have so much to share.
Thank you, Janice. I like your word agency, and I think it's a comparison between you and Chris, because both you talk about the power and empowerment, but we can see also there is a structure and also the agency. The tension between them is very complex. So maybe I think the athletes also have some personal experience about the agency, especially your individual agency in this framework, and use the artifact or the art practice as the agency. Can you elaborate it a little bit?
Do you want me to?
Oh, no. As an athlete. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm mostly used to my first name. Okay. So I'm not sure which aspect you want me to talk about, because when it comes to arts and identity and agency and culture, it's a lot. Like you cannot generalize, right?
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
what the first speaker said. So if can you come again, so that maybe I'm sure I'm getting you clearly.
Oh, you mean I have to clarify it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that in Christian's world, there is a powers and framework between the society, so we cannot, we have to see the importance of this power. But I think at the same time, in your speaking, we can also see that there is some individual agency, such as to use the music to arouse some awareness and their place making sense or their identity. So I guess this is a way to use the agency to just fight against the structure. Maybe do you agree with that, or is there any other suggestion?
I do agree with that. And I'm coming from a point of, culture and how and like identity, right? I feel like sometimes, as individuals, we do have different identities we have to kind of assess. Like myself, I'm a music educator, I'm a cultural ambassador, and I'm a Ghanaian, right? And then when you live somewhere else, like I'm living in Canada, you still have to be aware of your environment, but that does not mean losing touch with your culture, right? So art for me is for lack of better words, a powerful tool to use through either language or music or painting, etc. So even with the language itself, I'm a Ghanaian, but I speak 4 different Ghanaian languages, right? And that connects me to people.
Yeah.
I don't learn it just because of me. As a teacher, I'm just sharing this very short example where I was teaching in a school in Ghana where I did not understand the language, and the kid was hit by another kid, and he was like, "Madam, this boy beats me, but he couldn't really express it the way it really happened. So then he spoke his language, and I didn't really understand it, but I felt it, right? So even art is through like expression, that also connecting to the culture. So that even prompted me to learn his language. And so I feel like, you know, it's a whole broad, it's a broad, how do I say? But, you know, the connection is very important. Just like we're talking about the nearby and all that, you know, connecting with ourselves, connecting with other people through art, through what we do, through different disciplines. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for your detailed explanation. And for the Beverly, we can see that you mentioned the perception of the art importance. Maybe I think this is also the premise to make other people have the power to change their situations and perspective. So can you elaborate it more, such as how can you use the art education program to just arouse others' perception of the art education's importance? Thank you.
It is something that most schools in Ontario have to find a way in which the arts are still put as a priority. And the ways I think we can do that is trying to showcase and introduce and invite the community to be part of the campus and to share our resources and showcase what our students can do, so that when there are community events and activities, the students are there. As I mentioned in my introduction, we really underestimate their ability, and they really can do a lot. And over the years, being an educator, I know the students who succeed are usually the ones who know how to play school very well. They know to put up their hands and answer the questions, do all the assignments. But what we have to do is bring a greater engagement so that the students are also looking at creativity and considering their own inquiry-based learning to be curious again. They have that when they're children, and somehow through education, we kind of lose that. And then they are so focused on the marks that they need to get into university and college. They don't care about the learning anymore. So, you know, how do we bring that back? And then bringing the arts is still part of that, because kids know how to have fun. We do something wrong, if I can say at the secondary level, where the emphasis now doing the work, doing the assignments, and then that we've taken the fun out of what, you know, we've did very well at elementary level, and that secondary level, it's disappeared. But, you know, for me, when I entered university, it came back. It was more energizing. I was speaking to people who had the same interests. So I don't know how we can start to change secondary school to be a better balance and preparation for students. That's where I find, you know, the challenge.
Okay, thank you, Beverly. Yes, you have mentioned the importance of education. That is our full meaning. Yeah, art education, especially education's method and methodology, and also some details is very important to just inspire others' creativities and the empowerment to get some change. So I'm very thankful for all of you participate to talk about this wonderful idea. So maybe there are a lot of things that we want to share, maybe in the future or in the Q&A part. I think we have more opportunity to chat about it. So now I strongly recommend you to stay here to listen to our final topic. It's very wonderful and very interesting. It's about the art education and the cross-culture communication. So before that, let me share my screen. Okay, can you see that? Yeah. So the final part is art education and cross-culture communication. So we think about how can art education extend the nearby and contribute to cross-culture communication. We invite Lang Jiaziyu, Lü Chenchen, and Guan Peng to share their experience to bring Chinese art go abroad. So the first paper, Lang Jiaziyu, Let me see. Yeah, Lang Jiaziyu is the third generation inheritor of the National Intangible Cultural Heritage Mianren Lang in Beijing. His topic is Bring Mianren Lang Aboard, Cross-Cultural Communication of Traditional Chinese Art. Let's welcome.
第4个话题：艺术教育与跨文化传播，探讨如何通过艺术教育扩大附近的视域，让事件连成一体。我们邀请了来自中国的年轻非遗传承人郎家子玉，来自美国哈佛中国艺术实验室的吕晨晨博士，以及来自国际亚洲文化工会的管鹏主席，共同分享中国艺术在海外的跨文化传播。首先，让我们邀请郎家子玉。郎家子玉是国家级非物质文化遗产北京面人廊第3代传承人。他分享的主题是让面人廊走出国门，传统中国艺术的跨文化传播。
大家好，我是郎家子玉，然后我现在来分享一下我的这个 PPT。大家好，我叫郎家子玉，然后是国家级的非物质文化遗产北京面人廊的第3代传承人。然后今天非常开心能够参加我们的论坛，和大家一起分享我作为北京面人廊的传承人是如何去推广我们这个项目的，然后以及去讨论一下中国的传统艺术怎么样去做到不停的去突破不同的圈层，然后在中国的这个不同的这个文化圈层之内去做到一个让它有更广泛的传播并且呢在国际层面去做跨文化的这种交流和传播。我们的翻译也是没问题的吧？字幕？
没问题。
OK， 好。那首先来介绍一下什么是面人，或者它也叫做面塑，那就是用面粉去制作的这种造型艺术。因为它的这个题材描写的对象主要是以人物为主，所以在中国的这个老百姓之间呢，大家就会把它叫做面人儿因为主要是以人物为主的。它是一种以面粉为原料的中国的传统民间雕塑艺术。那面人廊呢，是我们这项非物质文化遗产的一个名称。它是一种传统的中国的命名方式。前面呢是你所从事的行当，面人。那后面的廊字呢，其实是它的这个家族姓氏。当这个家族姓氏被冠在这个行业的后面的时候，它往往是对你家族所从事的这个行业，然后的一个品牌的认证，是一个褒奖。那么其实在传统的中国也有很多的这种老字号就是一些很古老的这种品牌。可能更被大家熟知的是比如说泥人张，或者是类似于一种小吃叫小肠陈，它是一种非常传统的中国的这种命名方式。面人廊的创始人呢是我的爷爷郎绍安。他是面人廊传到今天呢，已经是有3代的传承了，已经超过100年的时间了。当然，我的爷爷郎绍安呢，他是1909年出生的，那一年是清朝的宣统元年，所以是一个还挺奇妙的一个体验。就是如果当你的这个爷爷是清朝人的时候，是一个还挺奇妙的一个体验因为我的爷爷一共有9个孩子，然后我是他最小的孩子的孩子，所以会产生这样的这个局面但是随着这个清朝的这个衰落呢，因为我爷爷是满族人，然后但是随着清朝的这个衰落呢，他就是不得不在10岁左右的时间就为自己去找一个营生去维持生计。那他就开始在街头去找一些小买卖去做。那个时候他遇到了自己的这个师傅，然后开始学习如何用面去制作雕塑这样的一种技艺。然后最开始呢，他是在街头当中，因为面塑这种艺术形式它的特点就是可以在非常短的时间内去完成 很生动的人物造型。那么可以从当时社会当中的一些非常流行的文化现象和这个人物当中去选取灵感，然后去制作他们的这个创作，然后在街头呢就完成这样的交易。所以我的爷爷呢也是在他非常小的年纪，可能10来岁的时候就开始走街串巷的去销售自己的面塑作品。然后，但是在建国之后呢，这样的一个技艺呢，被我们的国家保护、保存下来了。然后他开始到专门的机构去制作面塑的作品，然后为国家开始创作。那个地方呢的名字叫做工艺美术研究所，他也成为了那个里面的一位老艺人。从那个时候开始呢，因为在建国的初期，我们在做一些历史资料的调查的时候，发现其实在新中国刚刚成立的时候，我们的制造业、科技等等方面呢，其实是相对在国际水平是比较落后的。所以因此在国际交往和交流当中呢，我们大多数的能够展现我们自己的风采和文化的部分呢，其实基本上都是由传统手工艺人去担当这个重任。所以因此在上个世纪50年代到80年代这个中间呢，传统手工艺人其实在国内是享有非常高的这个社会地位的。那个时候他们的创作呢也有很高的这种保障，所以也是传统手工艺在国内的一个黄金时期吧。然后他在我的爷爷1956年的时候，随着国家到英国去展演，然后去表演了面塑的技艺，也展示了作品。当时的这个因此呢，就是北京名人廊其实在国内有了一个比较大的传播的程度。然后当年的这个法国百代影视公司，然后还拍摄了我爷爷的一个纪录片。然后从此呢，其实也是标志着这个传统的民间工艺，它在这样的一个历史环境下走上了一个更高的一个殿堂。在其中呢，我们可以看到左边这张照片，就是我的爷爷在和他的孩子们去传授技艺。在这个图片的最右边有一个青涩的男孩，那个就是我的父亲。然后，他当时还是非常的年幼。在这个当中呢，我们就看到了这项技艺的第1代和第2代传承人们，然后他们也是继续着我爷爷的脚步，很多次的在国际文化交流的这样的场合去传播着我们中国的这个传统艺术。但是紧接着呢，我们来到了接近20年之后，就是2008年。那个时候呢，我们知道，北京面人廊已经被列为了这个非物质文化遗产。也就意味着其实它已经存在着这个传播和传承的一个巨大的困难，然后它也失去了它很多的这个观众。当然，其实非物质文化遗产也是对这个艺术项目的一个艺术价值和文化内涵的一个巨大肯定。但是另外一方面呢，也意味着其实它的传承和传播遇到了很大的这个问题。在13岁右边的那个小男孩呢，就是小的时候的我。然后我自己就是从大概3岁4岁的时候开始跟随父亲，因为它是一个很有趣的一种艺术形式，很短的时间，用很容易得到的材料就可以制作出非常生动的形象，所以对小朋友来说是非常有吸引力的。我也不例外，所以在3、4岁的时候就开始跟随我的父亲去学习这个面塑的制作。在13岁的时候，我已经能够比较娴熟的去完成一些作品的这个制作了。但是让我觉得不开心的一点是，我觉得这样的传统技艺好像在我们这一代的年轻人当中，没有什么人知道。因为可能前一天的晚上，我的父亲还在跟我说，你的爷爷曾经代表国家，然后出访 到世界各地，然后曾经他的故事也被写到语文课本里面，然后很多人都知道他的名字，然后但是现在我就是可能在跟我的小的时候啊，7、8岁的时候，在跟我的同学分享的时候，没有人知道这件事情，我当然就不开心，所以我就当然是希望有更多人能够欣赏到我们的这个传统艺术，有一个非常明显的例子，就是可能在上学的时候跟大家分享我的特长是捏面人儿的时候，你可以明显的感觉到大家的一个有些奇怪的表情，就是也不知道应该如何去给你一个反应。当然，比如说你的特长是弹钢琴，大家就哇了不起啊，就是所以其实特别希望就是说传统技艺能够有一个更高的一个认知的程度。那我们就在想如何去做到让它再一次进入大众的这个视野。所以这个从我小的时候就一直在想要去改善这样的一个状况。
抱歉了，王老师，现在目前10分钟，可能麻烦您总结一下。
哦，好的，
谢谢。
那么我们就尽快进入上我们要怎么去解决到这个问题吧。那就是这些是我们的一部分创作。那可以看到，其实北京面人廊的作品的题材有可能是有关于动漫的形象啊，这些是一些新的影视的 IP。那这些都是大家广为熟知的这些影视的形象，然后所以也是在我们的流行文化当中的。所以我们从传统的题材当中就接入了这些形象，然后把它移植到我们的作品当中。那其实在这个展示的最右边的这张图片呢，其实也有一些关于我们现代年轻人的这个精神状态啊，大家的这个怎么样跟自己的情绪共存等等这样的话题的讨论。那其实它也是在试图去进入当代的一个范畴。我也想用这种形式尽量多去表达自己。我觉得可能这个是传统艺术和我们的当代艺术一个最明显的分界线。那通过这种创作的方式，能够让它进入到我们更多的年轻人以及当代的这个文化生活当中。当然，其实传统的作品我们在继续去延续，怎么样能把传统的美学能够带到我们现在的生活当中，让年轻人知道自己的传统，这个也是我们的工作之一。那后续我们通过一些方式，就是在社交媒体上去把自己的制作过程，以及大家可能比较喜闻乐见的作品放到这个社交媒体上，通过视频软件，然后让大家去看到。我认为效果也还是不错的。现在我们积累了差不多有200多万的粉丝关注，那这些大部分也都是年轻人，也越来越多的想要去知道，就是什么样的传统是我们来自什么样的这个文化，然后这里边到底有哪些比较美丽的地方，这个其实我觉得也是对我们来说非常重要的。而另外一部分，我们也在进一步的想让传统的工艺跟时代去进行结合。左边呢是我爷爷的作品，那这个作品已经有60、70年的这个时间了。然后，但是我们就是说想让这份这个美好的作品能让更多人看到，但是它非常的脆弱。我们在想怎么样去找到一个更好的方式让大家去看到，所以因此我们采用了3D 扫描建模的这种方式。它可以用更多的这种平台，随便你有一个屏幕就可以360度无死角的去翻转、放大、缩小去观看这个作品。这个也是万一这个作品有一天它损毁了，或者超过它的物理承受极限了，那么我们也可以通过这样的方式让后人继续看到这样的作品，去学习它的造型，还有它的这个美学。从国际传播方面呢，其实在2022年北京冬奥会的时候，我们有一个比较有趣的事件，就是当时的摩纳哥亲王在我的摊位面前，我用这个面塑去制作了冰墩墩，就是冬奥会的吉祥物。那北京冬奥会的吉祥物，当时他留在我的摊位面前，就是说能不能请你帮我一个忙？然后因为我家里边是2个孩子。如果我只拿走一个面塑作品的话，我会有很大的麻烦。然后当然这个 当然后续我当然就是再次为他制作了一个这个面塑的作品。那这个小的片段，其实在社交网络上，当时也是引起了很大的这个传播。其实，在国际的传播当中，我们的文化交流当中，其实非物质文化遗产还有我们的面塑技艺这样一个民间工艺，也可以起到它一个非常有利的作用。然后在今年是中法建交的60周年，然后我们也是再次跟随一个访问团来到了法国巴黎。那当时有一个非常优雅的女性来到我的这个展示的摊位面前，她说我能不能跟你的作品合影啊？我当时就同意了，然后因为她非常赏识我的作品，然后我就把这个作品送给她了。之后呢，她就跟我说，我太感谢你了，然后我回来，等我的儿子回来之后，我一定要把我的作品给他看。然后当时我就很困惑，我说，为什么你要提到你的儿子？然后他说，哦，对，我忘了告诉你说，我的儿子是法国的总统马克龙。然后，等他告诉我之后，我发现确实还是需要知道一下他的这个儿子是谁，这是一个很重要的信息。然后我当时不会跟他说，其实像我这样的中国传统手工艺人还有很多，然后我们这样的传统文化、传统艺术也是在慢慢的发展着，希望以后有更多的机会去做这样的交流，也非常感谢您喜欢我们的作品。然后当然他也给我一个非常大的情绪的一个反馈，他说其实我对中国的传统艺术不仅仅是喜欢，而是爱。那其实这个也给我们这样的传统手工艺人，以及想要去让世界各地更多的人去了解我们中国文化的人一个很大的鼓励。相信我们未来无论是在国际舞台上，还是在国内，更多的年轻人也可以去延续我们的传统，喜欢我们的传统，然后尽量的去跟世界去接轨，去完成更好的一个文化的交融和交流。那抱歉占用大家时间，我的分享就结束了，谢谢大家。
好，谢谢郎家子玉。Thanks for the inspiring sharing, and thanks for your personal experience as a young inheritors of the intangible cultural heritage to make us know that the intangible cultural heritage is not the thing that in the past, but in the present, and it can be dynamic, and it's a dynamic process in the future. You can also use some social media and other things to make it more vivid and relevant to the people's daily life. Thank you very much. So now we will introduce another speaker. 我先来介绍一下你。So now I will introduce another speaker, 管鹏. So Guan Peng is a chair of International Asia Culture Society Inc. Her topic is How Art Changed the World. Take the United States Ma Youyou and the Silk Road Asian example. Let's welcome. 管鹏女士是国际亚洲文化工会的主席，她发言的主题是艺术如何改变世界，以美国马友友与丝绸之路为例。我们欢迎。
好的，非常感谢主持人的介绍。对，大家应该都对马友友比较了解。然后我今天介绍的这个项目是他的丝绸之路项目。那马友友他是出生于1955年，出生在法国巴黎，后来就移民到后来就搬到美国纽约。然后他也是在哈佛大学取得了音乐学以及人类双学位。然后大家肯定对马友友有很深，基本上只要知道音乐或者古典乐，甚至对这方面哪怕不是特别了解，也都听过马友友的这个巴赫。那他是非常典型的这个和平使者，也是跨文化交流者。那他的这个丝绸之路项目，其实他是在10年前创立的，然后也是希望通过艺术和文化来促进世界之间的这种交流。那这个丝绸之路项目是不好意思，是20年前，是1998年启动，然后旨在通过这个音乐的力量促进促进这个国家与国家之间的，还有人民之间的这种文化和思维上的共鸣。 那这个项目聚集了来自20多个国家的音乐家，已经创作了70多部融合多元文化的音乐作品。那这个丝绸之路的整个发展历程也被拍成了纪录片，叫《The Music of Strangers》。这在中国的哔哩哔哩上面，或者在美国 YouTube 上面都是可以搜到这个纪录片，真的相当的感人。然后同时他也发行了一个专辑，是叫《歌咏乡愁》，Sing Me Home。所以大家如果感兴趣，也可以去看看这个纪录片，还有听一下像这些歌曲。那他这个因为他走遍了这么多的这个20多个国家，然后也和20多个国家的不同的音乐的人民去进行一个就是现场，其实它是有随性，然后还有这种非常的精美的这种就是制作它主要还是说因为入本身这个
Hello，
也是一个比较相对来说商业音乐作。对，因为这个主题是艺术如何改变。那刚刚也有嘉宾提到说，很多现在
Hello，
可能觉得艺术
能听到我说话吗？
就是用来欣赏，让大家看。
Sorry，管鹏，Can you hear me？
Yeah, I could hear you.
I think the web. I think the web is not very well now.
Okay. Is it working now? 这种peacemaking 有一些人与人之间更深度的链接。那艺术，很多人觉得这不太理解艺术是为了什么而存在的，尤其是现在大家更多的是为了逐一些利，然后想去证明自己的人生的价值。那很多艺术家为什么他这么热爱艺术？是因为在艺术当中，他有苦有甜，也有很多对人性的这个深刻的理解。那像现在大家因为如果说一个国家的经济发展不是特别的好的话，那他可能会更在乎一些这个物质上的基础。但是像马斯洛需求理论，人对一个更高层次的精神的追求，其实才是人本质的这个最深层次的价值。所以马友友为了让更多的世界上的观众能认识到艺术真正的价值，他就做了这个丝绸之路的一个项目，希望去用艺术影响人类去改变这个世界。那大家也知道，现在像 Bangladesh 还有孟加拉国、缅甸。尤其是俄乌战争，还有以色列这边这些国家都处在一个很动荡的一个阶段。那也有人说，如果大家都是艺术家，大家都懂得真正的艺术，懂得和平的重要性，能发现人生真正的本质，那可能这些没有必要的战争就会减少很多。而且文化交流其实也是一个相当重要的一个 peacemaking 的一个。可能说是我觉得是最重要的一种方式和途径吧，因为像我之前是在美国的时候，在纽约做过一个慈善音乐会，是给缅甸。那缅甸它其实虽然很小这个国家，大家可能中国同学也听说过缅北的战争，但是更多的人是说这个国家的人性有多么的邪恶。但是以我的了解，因为我当时是有很多朋友都是缅甸人，他们说其实很多最底层的原因是因为他们国家有130多个不同的种族，但是国家对这个种族之间的这种交流不是很看重，而且他们其实是 Buddhism，就是最多的是 Buddhism，然后剩下来还有不同的宗教。那不同的宗教和不同的文化之间很容易产生很多的误解，然后外加大家对物质的追求和逐利，导致这个 这个种族矛盾更加的这种恶化，因为他们之前是被那个英国统治的。那如果说被一个这样的统治，在统治下的话，那这些矛盾可能就被压到最底层。然后，但是现在英国不知名了之后，那么这些所有的这些因为种族、因为文化隔阂、因为一些对物质上的追求，还有一些经济上的问题，导致整个国家一直处在战乱当中。2021年的时候，就直接是爆发了现在非常大家可能看到非常严重的这种这个叫什么？这个大战
冲突，
对冲突，但是这么一个小国家，大家也可以看到，其实是一个全世界的缩影。如果说我们再去对不同文化不理解，去追求一些所谓的这种物质上的满足，而放弃精神上追求的话，那更多的可能第3次世界大战，大家也不知道什么时候会爆发。所以，就这个其实就是总结一下，为什么这个艺术这么重要？为什么大家一定要学习艺术？为什么现在可能这个世界大家会觉得更加痛苦了？对，然后那我大概介绍一下这个具体的项目是什么吧，就是20多个不同的国家、不同的音乐家去演绎自己国家的这个关于文化呀、关于各种国家历史的一种展现。那这种因为为了体现了文化多元性，同时它也包括了像中国琵琶、吴蛮，应该大家都清楚，就很早之前也是可能受到了一些压迫，然后到了美国纽约，然后在 Chinatown 那边生根，然后把中国的琵琶带到了就是大都会，带到了纽约，然后还有印度的这个塔布拉鼓，那这些可能乐器有的人听过，有的人没有听过。那如果说大家可以看一下的纪录片，会对这些感受更加的深刻。总共有70多部的这个新作品，然后也体现了各个文化的交融性。一会儿我会给大家展示一下纪录片，因为我讲肯定是没有音乐和这个艺术展现的更加的直观。对，刚刚也提到了，像歌咏乡愁也是它其中一个非常好的一个专辑，然后也有草原之下，还有草原之下也是其中的一个非常有名的一首作品。然后它是在纪录片，我一会儿会展示大概2分钟左右的这个纪录片，大家可以感受一下整个这个它的历程。叫 The Music of Strangers， 就是用艺术把不同国家的人、不同背景的人、可能不同种族的人聚集在一起，去向世界展现人性的伟大和艺术的伟大。请大家欣赏一下。
Yeah. Hi, Fred. So glad to see you.
Nice to see you.
Thank you. When you play, I'm sure you have a lot of different feelings. And as you played as a child, did you ever play happy things or sad things or angry things just because you wanted to?
Oh, sure. One of my favorite was the Swan, which was... You look at anybody's life, you could find tragedy. Nobody escapes. Either the great things or horrible things. That's the space between life and death. How do you deal with the fears and doubts? Do you dare go there? Can you put all of yourself behind something and be absolutely authentic in doing it to the best of your ability?
希望大家已经对这个纪录片有所了解了。这个，所以基本上这个，如果说有一些观众不是很了解英文的话，大概解释一下，就是马友友在其中的结尾处，这个片段是结尾处，然后他拉了他的天鹅。其实我也是之前在曼哈顿音乐学院学习的是大提琴表演，我这个天鹅说实话非常的简单，但是为什么他拉的这么动听？为什么他拉的巴赫就比别人拉的更好听？是因为他对人心的理解。对人性的这个深刻的认知，而不是仅仅只是技术。那如果说他只是懂技术，只是懂怎么去把音乐拉得更加精湛，去炫技巧，那他不是一个大师，他顶多是个技师。技师也很了不起，但是真正的大师是他可以把他的所有的思想、对人类的情怀的关注，把他对天人合一。对所有道家、对西方哲学、对中国文化的影响、对世界文化的理解，去在他的音乐当中展现，去展现他的人生。如果说大家感兴趣，我真的是建议看一下这个纪录片，当中有一段就是讲了很多，应该是叙利亚战争，就是说他们整个村庄就是整个 refugee 的那个地方，就是他们的难民营那边，因为为了省电，然后把所有的暖气关掉，结果好多这个难民全部被冻死。这个只是展现在纪录片的一部分，但据我了解，就像缅甸，为什么当时我们在联合国给缅甸，就是不是在联合国举办的，是在另外一个叫 International House 举办了一个给联合国的难民署捐款的，给缅甸难民捐款的一个这个慈善音乐会。当时就是展现了很多就是血淋淋的现实，就是甚至他们连个鸡蛋都买不起。然后还有就是没有人关注他们。其实音乐也是一种号召人性，让大家去为了整个世界不公平的这个事情发生的一种等于说手段吧。我在最后再介绍一下，我们说了这么多，就是肯定有人说你说这么多，你估计不怎么做吧。对，后来虽然我之前学的是音乐表演，但是我们在美国创立了这个非营利组织，叫叫国际亚洲文化工会。对，就这个。这个是 base 在美国，因为我当时是在美国待了6年，然后也发现，大家可能对中国文化或者说一些 Asian culture 没有一个非常全面的认知，可能大家会有了解，但是不是特别的，怎么说，就是对这个艺术或者我们种族的文化没有一个非常全面的一个认知，那可能大家会觉得中国就是 Chinatown，就是法拉盛。但其实我们中国有很多博大精深的艺术形式，所以这个是我们当时的也是一个演出的一个视频，然后所有的照片，然后下面的观众也都是来自各个国家，然后大部分都是高知，就比如说来自哥伦比亚大学、纽大，因为当时在纽约嘛，所以就是邀请了这些观众朋友们去欣赏关于中国、关于不同文化的这种表演，然后我们。这个是后来也带到了中国去做了一些这种论坛演讲，然后还有一些 workshop，然后也有一些这种青年领袖计划，就是也发展了不同的板块。原本是从文化交流开始，然后但是发现就是软实力和硬实力都得跟得上，所以回到中国了之后，我们也是联合了像这些不同的这种校友会，然后还有一些比较有国际影响力的这种组织去做了一些像青年领袖计划的这种论坛，然后文化艺术的这种展示，然后还有一些关于慈善公益，就是我们今年8月份会和 ICC 全球发明大会做一个 STEM Girls 的项目，就是帮助一些更多的女性的小孩去学习如何去创业，然后后面也有一些这种 就是国际友人社区。这个就是一些我们在这个当时是请了茱莉亚音乐学院在纽约的茱莉亚音乐学院的乐团在纽约，当时我们搞了这个文化艺术庆典，然后这个是我们
不好意思，关老师打断一下您，我们可能现在要 move 到 Q&A， 可能麻烦您总结最后几句话，不好意思。
好的，没问题。对，然后这些是照片嘛，也没什么了。然后就一些我们的这个，我们的那个就是报纸。然后这些是我们邀请的各位嘉宾，有像Berzo 他是欧盟经济委员会顾问，然后还有 SpaceX 前华人高管，然后还有像这个创投领域，还有这种硅谷创投教父，就是艺术文化公益慈善板块，我们都是请了这些人去为我们的这个观众进行一个分享然后欢迎大家可以就是关注我们的公众号国际亚洲文化工会，因为我们后期也会有一系列的针对青年领袖、国际领袖的这种还有文化交流的这种项目，然后也可以添加我的微信，然后对。那我的分享就到此结束，非常感谢大家的邀请，也对，就非常辛苦大家组织这个论坛。
谢谢管鹏。Thanks for your inspiring sharing, and your sharing make me feel that the art education or the art can just break down some stereotype and break down the boundary between different culture and to make us link together. So your presentation also has a good conclusion of our form. It means the art education can light the nearby by connecting different people together. So because the time is so limited and we have to change another ways to just do our roundtable. And also I'm so sad but lucky to share that there is another speaker, but she is occupied in the airplane. So she just shared us a video to talk about the Harvard CamLab program. And I think in order to make more people to see that, we will post it in the social media so that everyone can just know more about it in your daytime, because the time is so limited. So maybe the Q&A part, we will change another form. It's the virtual roundtable and Q&A. That means that I fear that everyone come here today has a lot of sharing idea and has a lot of things that want to share. And also you hear others perfect sharing, and maybe you have some comment and you have some idea you want to connect with each other more. So if you have the question and if you have something more that you want to elaborate, maybe you can just connect with me, connect with us, our team, and write the email or some message to us, and we can just like the bridge to connect you together. Maybe in the future, we will have more opportunity to just work together to do a bigger theme. So maybe it's time to say goodbye. Thank you for all your wonderful sharing. The time fly, and we have reached the end of our gathering. We are grateful for the participation of all the guests and the audience, which together create today's wonderful connection. Although all good things have to come to an end, but we believe that this gathering is not the end. So the purpose of this forum is to allow guests from around the world to share your uniqueness of art education in local engagement within your cultures. We also hope that both the speakers and the audience member can respect the word diversity through exchange and dialogue, seek resonance between culture, and jointly explore the new idea and practice in how education can illuminate the nearby. So we will very welcome that everyone can just continue your exploration between the role of the art education in lighting the nearby. Thank you very much.
感谢各位嘉宾的精彩分享。今天的会议已经到了结束的时候，但是这一次我们相信，这一次的相聚并没有画上句号。此次论坛的初衷是 能够让世界各地的嘉宾分享自己的文化中艺术教育在地方参与中的独特性。我们也希望嘉宾和观众朋友们能够在交流和对话中尊重世界的多样性，寻找文化之间的共鸣，共同探索艺术教育点亮附近的新思想、新实践。
Okay, so I think it's time for us to say goodbye. If you have other things want to share, you can share with us now. But if maybe it's time for you to go for a rest or go for a lunch. So sorry that we have to say so sorry to just delay this form, but we think that it's a wonderful and successful form because all of you give us a very inspiring idea of the art education. So goodbye everyone, see you in the future. And
Sorry, 我们可以介绍分论坛之后的下一场。
Yeah, and I think maybe you can continue to just notice our comments form, and I will share the last PPT. Yeah, and maybe the next form is AI and art education. So if you are interested in, please just keep your time and to enter the Zoom. So everyone just, I hope everyone can enjoying this morning. So goodbye to everyone.
欢迎继续关注多大中国教育论坛，我们未来再见。谢谢大家今晚的参与。
好的，非常感谢大家。然后如果还有一些问题的话，也可以现在说。然后如果是没有的话，我们就可以结束了，然后大家可以离场。Thank you all the participation.